Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
You are not in Kansas anymore. You are on Pandora.
No, I'm simply saying that life finds a way.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Film Jump with your host Jesse and Chris. This is episode 2. Not really kind of episode 2, but officially, unofficially, we have a bunch of episodes. Check them out. What's up, Chris?
Not a whole lot.
Last episode we did movies of the 90s.
Yeah, that was fun. Good times. More than we could have covered, but it was fun.
Yeah, so after we posted that one, I had a couple people come up to me and say, hey, look, you kind of forgot all these movies, but
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It's our list, first of all. This is our podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't hit all of them, but here's the thing. There are a couple omissions that I do feel really, really bad
Sure,
about.
I've got like 2 solid ones that are noteworthy.
All right, I'll go first.
Yep.
All right, so just a quick little rehash. The one I did forget, I can't believe, Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
Was that 98?
98. Big deal.
Yeah, Spielberg won Best Director, won a bunch of other stuff, but didn't get Best Picture, lost to Shakespeare in Love.
Which is, that's one of those that, like, hindsight retroactively, it's like Shakespeare in Love doesn't deserve to win that one. In the moment it won, but like hindsight in the history of things didn't deserve it.
Yeah, looking back, I don't think anybody would do the same thing again. It's definitely Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, definitely.
What a harrowing movie. I don't need to say anything that hasn't been said already about it. It's amazing. It's one of those ones where I will watch it when it's on, but I'm not like always eager to put it on.
Yeah.
Because it is kind of like a tough watch, but man, it is just impeccably directed. It's just an amazing movie.
Yeah, not my personal favorite WW2 movie, but an excellent one for sure.
Really?
I'm a Hacksaw Ridge kind of a guy.
Okay. Hey, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So, I mean, not that Saving Private Ryan isn't good, but I like Hacksaw Ridge.
Hey, that's perfectly fine.
My 98 omission was Blade, just because that's such a huge movie amongst me and my brothers. Like, it's such a big one. It's like, I couldn't believe that I didn't mention Blade, because after Batman and Robin like killed superheroes, Blade was kind of like a stepping stone to saving it a little bit. And Blade kind of leads to the Matrix a little bit. That kind of, there's bullet time in Blade and the trench coats and all that stuff. So it's like Blade to the Matrix, Blade to X-Men. It's kind of a precursor movie, and it's just a really, really good movie, and I wanted to mention it.
Yeah, there's a big time around there where movies like that into the early 2000s and even the late like 2000, early 2010s rather, they're like all black leather. We'll talk about that in a minute, but they were kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, Blade's one of the like progenitors of that. The Matrix kind of put it on the spot, but Blade's like a precursor.
Blade is good. I really like Blade.
Excellent movie.
And then the last one, I think, for an omission's sake, that's worth talking about. We did mention it, to be fair. It is mentioned, but we glossed over it real quick. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, the first of the prequels.
Yeah, and part of that was intentional because we knew we'd be talking about the prequel trilogy as a whole as it spilled into the early 2000s. Yeah. But yeah, The Phantom Menace, I mean, the first kind of movie where it felt like there was just computer effects all over the place. There wasn't like one creature like a dinosaur or a dragon or a monster. It's like it was like blue screen and digital effects and robots and spaceships and all this stuff. Like just went absolutely bonkers with the visual display. And so the Phantom Menace was very significant culturally for Star Wars, but also in terms of VFX.
Yeah, I remember very vividly going to the theater, seeing the cardboard standees for Tarzan, the cartoon anyways, and just that whole time is very very fresh still. I can recall it very clearly. And
yeah,
I wasn't like the diehard Star Wars fan. I think a lot of the elder people were. I wasn't disappointed. I had a great time, loved it. And then kind of came around later when I got older. I'm like, oh man, what the heck? The prequel trilogy sucks, man. And then, like we always talk about, the beautiful thing, you come back and you develop your own taste and you kind of really don't care what everybody else says. And, I love it, especially compared to some of the more recent Star Wars releases. It's...
We'll get to those. I remember the first time I saw a TV commercial for Episode 1, I was like confused because it was like Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I thought it meant they were making 2 different movies. Like they were making Episode 1 as like before and like The Phantom Menace as like after, because I'm like 6 and I don't really understand. But like I remember like running into the other room and like telling my mom like there's a new Star Wars is coming out. And so like my whole family, it felt like my whole family went to go see that movie when it came out. It was crazy. But fond memories of it,
Had all the toys.
Massive. In general, I've always liked the Star Wars prequels, so I'll just leave it at that for now.
Yeah, a lot of aspects of that one, and we'll talk about the other ones in a little bit, have aged better, and then some aspects kind of haven't aged, but overall, like on the whole,
Yeah.
give me the prequel trilogy all day long over the new stuff.
I'm an original saga kind of guy.
Oh yeah, hands down. All right, so like I said, we did our 90s episode last time. That's episode 1. We went from 1990, kind of glossed over a few of the entries in the beginning there to kind of get to 1993, the big one with Jurassic Park. But then we went all the way to 1999. I mentioned a couple stuff here and there. Now we're doing the 2000s.
Yeah,
specifically 2000 all the way up until 2009.
Yeah, you know what the trendy name for this episode is? It would be episode 2000.
Episode
That's what they were doing in 2000.
Yeah.
Everything was branded 2000. So, it's perfect that it's episode 2.
That was so big because like everything back then, you mentioned last time were like abbreviations like X2 and like all these things. That was like the hot thing back then. I feel like, the marketing.
Godzilla 2000, Dracula 2000, Fantasia 2000. Like they were in on it.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I don't want to waste any time here because we have a fat list of movies to go over.
Yeah.
I think much more than the 90s, to be honest. I was going over the list, dude. And I got to say, there was a lot more that I remember being like, man, you know what? Here's that. Okay, wow, here. I'm surprised here. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we were still young.
More firsthand memory. So, like, even the stuff that we would quickly gloss over the 90s, in the 2000s, you see it, and you're like, oh, well, that was kind of fun. Like, oh, that's not super significant, but, like, I dug that movie. Like, I like that movie. You're teenagers. You're seeing kind of everything. You have a memory of it coming out, even if you didn't watch the movie. So there's just naturally going to be stuff that we want to mention and talk about more than the 90s.
Right. And just so the listeners are aware, we split up the 2000s as far as compiling a list because, believe it or not, we actually went into the 90s list mostly without a list in front of us. We kind of did.
We were doing it on the fly.
Yeah, we did
gunslinger days.
We did check on it when we were kind of like fact checking and kind of running out of movies, and naturally we had some omissions there that we were called out for, but that's okay. This is going to be more of a list of our favorite movies rather than like notable or box office or flops or whatever. This is going to be more or less curated based on our tastes and our favorite movies growing up.
And maybe most hated movies as well.
Yeah, that's true.
This is, this isn't history. This is, preference.
Right. Like I said, we split up the 2000s. I have 2000 all the way up until 2005. At least I come up with a list. We're going to talk about it together. And then you have 2006 to 2009.
Yeah, because the decade goes 2000 to 2009. It goes 1990 to 1999. 2010 is part of the 10s. Like, that's how it works in case anyone's ever confused. I remember at the end of 2010, all these websites were doing the best movies of the decade list. I'm like, you guys are absolutely idiots. It's not how the decade works.
Right.
But whatever.
Yeah. We're going to do it right because it's us.
Yeah.
Both winners of the prestigious Outstanding TV Production Student Award in high school.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes us the experts on everything film related.
Of course.
So jumping right into it, I got the list in front of me so I don't, waste a lot of time thinking about stuff. Going off with a bang because it's a Christmas season, I want to talk about The Grinch.
That was 2000.
That was 2000.
Wow.
Yeah, Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey killed it in The Grinch.
Yeah, that movie is still iconic. Still a lot of people's favorite, like, Christmas time movie.
Yeah.
It's up there with, like, Home Alone and some of the more recent, air quote, classics.
Yeah. It's a good display of like makeup effects as well. It's a fun one. Was it Ron Howard that directed that?
I believe it was.
Yeah, like it's got that kind of wholesome vibes that he brings to it. Like that was a well done one. That was fun.
Insanely quotable, forever quotable.
Yeah, Jim Carrey's performance alone, he just kind of kills
he's
it.
Perfect for the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so during the Christmas season, we love Christmas and we love The Grinch in my house. 2000, man, it's a really fat year, so I might like rapid fire some of these.
Rapid fire, the better ones will get more attention. We'll gloss over the other stuff.
And here's the thing: in the 2000s, we have like this crazy kind of weird evolution of the 90s, and like a lot of these movies are very samey, and like the comedies, like the Bring It Ons, the Mean Girls, like you have these weird early 2000s. I use the word schlocky all the time, but
you get some gems in there. It's like
the
cream rises to the top, as we say, and it's an interesting transition because you kind of go to the 90s and CGI was becoming a thing, but there was still a lot of practical effects, and then across the early 2000s, there's this sweet spot where there'd be a nice mix of digital effects and practical effects. Some of the movies we mentioned will have that. and it's sort of this transition, but it's this nice little realm where it's like there's CGI in combination with practical effects, and it's just a nice little spot for like effects films.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You know, they were hitting a point in technology where they could start taking on new ideas, new things that technology would allow for. So you're getting a lot of I don't want to say risks per se, but you know, a lot of new ideas were definitely getting greenlit and stuff like that based on, I think, on technology alone.
Yeah.
You know, your Ben Stillers, Will Ferrell.
Some comedy
Adam
giants.
Sandler.
Yeah, comedy
they
giants.
They're all still very, very big at that time. So one that I remember fondly, Meet the Parents.
Yeah, that was good. De Niro,
Ben Stiller.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm going to be bouncing around because I wrote this list based off what I saw. You know, they're not really categorized perfectly, but
You're good. I went in chronological order. It's okay.
Oh, look at you!
Yep.
You know, above and beyond. Another kind of weird one that's, you know, Charlie's Angels.
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
yeah, definitely better than the 2019 Charlie's Angels. That's for darn sure.
Oh yeah. Oh
Dude,
my gosh.
that-
I totally
you don't
forgot
even know
about
that movie exists. That's how
forgot.
that's how terrible and non-existent that movie is. Nothing against Kristen Stewart or anyone in that movie. That's a terrible movie though.
Yep. Yeah. We'll talk about terrible
But yeah,
movies.
give me the one with Lucy Liu and all them in it. Like at least those movies are like fun.
Yeah.
you know?
I'll even take the sequel, Full Throttle.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Anyways, going on to the Coen Brothers. Oh brother, where art thou?
Yeah, I remember seeing that movie when I was like a kid, and I was just like, "What's this weird movie?" Like,
This
it
is
just
a weird movie.
It was just like so like I'm seeing them like when they're doing like when they're singing in the band and whatnot. Like I just did not like that movie was way over my head at 8 years old.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, and it's weird because around this time you get a lot of like double features from certain actors or directors. In 2000 we had The Grinch, and then that same year another Jim Carrey movie dropped. But it was weird because it was an R-rated movie, and it was so weird to see Jim Carrey, Me, Myself, and Irene.
Oh, okay. See, I never would have guessed those were from the same year, but like in our house, like we totally loved Me, Myself, and Irene.
Yeah.
Like, cause like Hank, like the Hank persona always kind of, for me and my younger brother at the time, like it felt kind of like a little bit of like a parody of our dad a little bit, like kind of like, you know, just kind of like no nonsense, kind of like saying weird stuff and
Super
like
offensive.
Yeah, like it just kind of felt like it had like our dad energy in it, or at least us as kids at the time kind of thought that. But yeah, Me, Myself, and Irene is a funny movie.
You couldn't make that today.
No,
there's no way.
No,
and that's
no.
a good. You know, the thing about the
No.
'90s and especially the 2000s is a lot of the stuff that was considered funny,
Yeah.
and inoffensive is now off. You know,
Yeah,
you cannot.
You wouldn't
touch
even
it.
be able to suggest that. Yeah, it's funny. The one character's name is Casper in there, and like I've always been pale. So
Whitey.
like between the movie Casper and like that movie Me, Myself, and Irene, like I was called like my brother and my dad like would nickname me like Casper and Milkady and all that stuff. Like it was just that's just how it was. But you know, it's a fun movie.
And then you had your bizarre comedies like Dude, Where's My Car?
Oh, see, that was even one that like as a kid I was like, this is
Ashton
kind of
Kutcher.
like
It is
it's
very
fun,
stupid.
but like I was just like, this is kind of like even as a kid I'm like, this is kind of dumb, you know, like it's got its moments, but it just didn't land for me.
Right. And then another twofer is, you know, one of them is definitely one of our favorites. The first one I'll go is Mel Gibson's What Women Want.
Oh wow.
That drop, you know, where he gets struck by lightning and they can hear what.
That's a
hear.
that's a VHS memory. That's a, like aunt and uncle renting the VHS, kind of like watching the movie. And I distinctly remember the scene where there's the two women and it's completely quiet, you know, because there's no thoughts or anything going on in their head. And one of my aunts was like, "Why doesn't he hear what they're thinking?" And my uncle being like, "Because they're not thinking anything." It was like this great moment.
I remember being like actually really fond of that movie because I don't think I was like the one putting it on, but it was just on. I remember
Yeah.
it being on, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I like Mel Gibson.
Back when like comedies could be like the event movies of the year, you know, they weren't like niche, but like sometimes like these comedies could like be like huge worldwide hits and be like some of the most popular movies released in a year. Now it's like a comedy is only ever like so popular, you know.
Right. Well, and you know, Mel Gibson all the way back from the '80s and Lethal Weapon up until now, he was still, you know, on his A game.
Mel Gibson's awesome. Mention the better Mel Gibson.
Yeah. The other Mel Gibson is The Patriot.
The Patriot, all-time great movie. Freaking love that
I think
movie.
you love this movie more than I do.
I love that movie more than most people.
Yeah.
Maybe anybody. I don't know. I love that movie.
Talk about it. Let him hear about it.
So I don't know. Like there's not a lot of great like Revolutionary War movies. And so like you talk about like a Revolutionary War movie, turn of the new millennium, called The Patriot, like I don't know. That just kind of checks a lot of boxes for me. And as I got older, I'm like, I enjoy my occasional like gung ho America movies, and The Patriots is like really good. Certainly, I think like the most well-rounded movie that Roland Emmerich's ever directed. Like you watch it and it's like it's not a Spielberg level movie, but it feels like Roland Emmerich kind of doing his best to try.
It's a cut above his standard.
Because it's got, I think John Williams is on the score.
Yes.
So like it's Roland Emmerich kind of being like, all right, how hard can I try to make a movie that's like really, 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 really good? And it's like it's legit. The battle scenes are great. That movie just gets the blood flowing. That's a great movie.
Plus, it has one of the best villains ever. And you love to hate him because he took
Jason Isaac, right?
Yeah. And he spoiler, he kills Heath Ledger's character, and it's just like. That's like the big blow in that movie.
Yeah, Heath Ledger was good in that. That's a well done movie.
Yeah, fantastic. We love The Patriot. Little sports movie that I'll be remiss from somebody, a certain subscriber. Remember the Titans.
Okay, Remember the Titans is good.
Yeah, and I think Ryan Gosling's in that movie, and I think he was like fairly young. I don't think he was in a whole lot at that time.
I'm not the sports movie expert, but everyone knows. Everyone remember the Titans, We
remember the Titans. Yeah. Oh, God, I had to get that one out there. That you'll know who you are listening to this one. This one's for you. Let's go with X-Men.
X-Men was good. I remember my dad taking me and my brother to see that one in theaters, and that was when the 90s cartoon was very popular, the classic animated X-Men of the 90s. So we were just kind of wanting that. Like we were wanting like, oh, I wonder if they'll use the music. I wonder if this and that. But I remember just seeing that movie, and it was just it was just very cool. It was a very surreal thing to be, 8 years old and to see that's Wolverine, but he's for real, and like that's Cyclops and that's Storm. Like back when just seeing the character in live action was like a moment of itself. It's like they don't look really anything like the cartoon, but you kind of just rolled with it. Doing the whole Matrix like black leather thing, like all the superheroes wearing black and stuff. But it's sort of the precursor to Spider-Man 2 years later. We'll get to that one. But X-Men was kind of like the turning point, the stepping stone, where it's like it was a hit, but it wasn't that massive crazy thing. But it was the kind of hit that then led to the mega hit later that opened the floodgates. I remember
people saying like, okay, these can work. Like, sure, Blade, start like there were movies that started, but like I feel like when X-Men came out and then later Spider-Man, that was it. We can now do superhero movies.
And Hugh Jackman kind of killing it. Like they do these great things in the movie where he's this sort of everyman kind of entry point in. He's like making fun of the names. He's like, what do they call you, Wheels? Talking about Professor X. And then at one point, Professor X is talking to him about Magneto, and he's like, what's a Magneto? Like it's this great stuff. It's like that's how you kind of get the parents that like aren't experts on this stuff like in on it, and it's just like it's good fun. It's good stuff.
Perfect segue to another superhero movie, Unbreakable.
Okay, yeah, kind of like a not superhero movie. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, we didn't mention The Sixth Sense either.
You're right. That's another omission.
Sixth Sense was 99, put him on the map, and then this was like, or 98 maybe, I don't know. Yeah. But then this kind of like was the follow-up to that. Well, but solid movie,
Yeah, you and I both share, I think, the same favorite Shyamalan movie. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Which isn't Unbreakable.
Yeah, but Unbreakable is really cool. I'm a huge fan of Bruce Willis.
I remember I caught like the last 20 minutes and it was kind of flying over my head. I'm like, what? Like he's his nemesis? Like what are we talking about here? But yeah, cool movie.
And then it eventually went on to like his own version of like the shared universe with Split and Glass.
Yeah,
even though Glass I think fumbled it.
I think a cooler concept than it was eventually executed.
Yeah. Anyways, to be honest, I don't think I've seen like really all of Glass or much of it, and I'm okay with that.
I saw bits and pieces when we played it, so it's like, I saw some, didn't see it. Like, it's not my thing.
Yeah, a little interesting one that sparked a franchise, Final Destination.
Yeah,
the first Final Destination.
Yeah, the one with the plane crash.
Seann William Scott was in that one. Remember that?
Yeah, when he was still doing a lot of these big comedy actors like Owen Wilson, Seann William Scott, they kind of start off as like the comedy character in a horror movie where they get sort of violently killed.
Oh yeah, and The Haunting back in the 90s.
Owen Wilson has The Haunting and Lake Placid where it's like he's like the funny side guy who gets viciously murdered and then he's starring in comedies years later. It's like Seann William Scott has a little bit of that in Final Destination, I was always the biggest fan of the second one, but Final Destination Final Destination 1 is really solid, really good. Interesting concept, this idea of like these Rube Goldberg experiment deaths where where it's like death itself is coming for you. So just like the weirdest coincidences will lead to like, it's an interesting concept. Freaked me out as a kid because I hated the idea of like death itself coming after you. Really freaked me out. Like I didn't want to watch those movies as a kid. I'm like, can it be a monster or something that they can blow up at the end? Like the idea of like death itself was like freaking me out when you're less than 10 years old.
Right. And it spawned a franchise for a reason, you know, it was very effective. And what I like about the first few is, yes, they had their ideas of what can we do here, but they weren't so much how can we take these guys out in the most graphic, gory way.
It didn't feel like
just happened to be.
It didn't feel
like
gag
that.
driven. Like it felt like they had enough like drama. And someone said once, they're like, you know, the acting gets worse in each one of these movies that they make. And it's like, yeah, it kind of like the filmmaking kind of devolves as you go in. And it's like the first two are like, they're like legitimate movies, and then they just become kind of like the gag, the schlock, the fun, whatever, you know.
I'm gonna go ahead and jump to the second one, and that way we don't have to talk about it later or anything. But the second one, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree, the kill that got me the most is the one where the cop is driving behind the truck.
The semi with the
all the logs,
hauling the logs,
and it
the
goes
logs,
right through the windshield.
The logs,
dude,
and it pulverizes them. Everyone who sees logs chained up on the back of a truck on the
never drive
interstate
behind them.
has to keep their distance or good around it. Like it scarred a generation.
You know, I think because it looked so real, it wasn't like,
and it was in the trailer, so it was like one of those moments that like even
it was in the trailer
long before. Well, not like the death, but like seeing the logs fly off and fly toward the thing. Everyone's like, "Whoa!" you know, like even in the trailers, people reacted.
Yeah, those are good times. I definitely like those. Though, really, the first two. Let's jump on over to American Psycho.
Oh, wow, not a movie any of us saw back when it came out.
No.
It's discovered years later. I only recently watched it like within the last few years, but. Like wild. Apparently, the director has said that the Jason Bateman character in that movie was inspired by Tom Cruise, or like their interactions with Tom Cruise. Like he's such like an intense kind of a guy. Like
that's awesome.
That almost makes it even better. But part of the reason Christian Bale got Batman Begins, from what I understand, or at least part, like you know.
Yeah, we'll talk about his transformation from one movie to another later.
Yeah.
Moving on, The Perfect Storm was also that year.
Okay.
That was a good one. I remember. I think George Clooney's in that one, and Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Is it Mark Wahlberg?
I'm not the expert. I think it's Mark Wahlberg. I remember
catching true story.
Yeah,
though.
I remember catching the ending of it and like being kind of depressed, but like I didn't see the whole movie.
Yeah, my memory of that is that, you know, the whole effects were good and like it was really, you know, just a harrowing movie and very, very sad anyways. But that's a good one. I didn't want to pass that one up. Moving on to one of our favorite, like kind of still feels 90s, early 2000s, but better than it has any right to be, Pitch Black.
Yeah, Pitch Black. Oh man, yeah, I'd be salty if we went through 2000. And that's another one I remember my dad taking me to go see it. And like super spooky movie because like aliens in the dark kind of a thing, but it's like this really kind of cool, interesting sci-fi movie that's like kind of, again, better than it has any right to be. It's like the characters and the world and the arcs that the characters go on is like way more interesting than any kind of B movie sci-fi horror has any right to be. First big break for Vin Diesel as like a semi-leading role, you know. And so just like really well done, like the idea that he can see in the dark and he wears goggles to kind of like see normally, like just a really cool concept. And the sequels are a mixed bag, but Pitch Black is a standalone, like great sci-fi, kind of like an Alien for the modern generation kind of a movie.
Yeah.
I love it.
Back when I think Vin Diesel was much cooler.
Yeah, and I think a more like well-rounded actor. Like he's got a few set dials that he kind of goes to these days, but back there, like he's like it's a sci-fi movie, but like he's giving a performance as Riddick. Like it's an interesting kind of performance, you know.
Right. You know, we had a lot of comedies. Like I already said back then. One of them, I think, kind of spawned a whole, satire franchise, if you will, a Scary Movie.
Yeah, definitely ended up becoming, you know,
like
within a few years there was date movie and epic movie and superhero movie and all of those things. But the original Scary Movie, as raunchy as it is and as filthy as it is like it's an all-time comedy. Like it's got some moments that would still make me die laughing if I were to see them right now.
Yeah. Two animated movies that I want to talk about, or at least mention, because if we talk about every single one of these, we're going to be here for 5 hours.
Yeah.
Disney's Dinosaur.
Okay, yeah, love that. I remember seeing the preview for it and thinking it was a Land Before Time remake because like it follows the egg and like that happened in I think the second Land Before Time movie. They had a big bit like following the egg as it bounced around. Like that was the first teaser for Dinosaur. I was like, oh, this is Land Before Time, but it's not. It's Dinosaur. It's fun. I had a bunch of the toys as a kid. Like I dug it.
And I think at the time, like, yes, we had the Jurassic Parks and Independence Day, Godzilla, all these CGI effects-driven movies that were very convincing. But Dinosaur, for being like, you know, air quote kids movie, and like the CGI, the VFX were like really well done.
And I think they did something like kind of odd. Like I think there's like live action plates in it, and then they put animated characters in it. Like there's some kind of weird hybrid thing they were doing there to kind of like break some new ground. And so that's interesting. I'm sure the story of the making of it is much more interesting, compelling than like the actual final movie ended up being.
I just remember like the ending scene when I think the main character's name's Aladar. Yeah, Aladar, and he's like, stand together, you know, like, and they're fighting against the one dinosaur, like, it's all very, like, yeah.
Gosh, that's all hazy for me.
This is so cool. Well, I was, like, a huge dinosaur
Dinosaurs
nerd,
fighting is always cool. There's nothing wrong with that.
The other one that I think would be a really cool remake, live action, I've always had, like, a soft spot for this one, is Titan AE.
Yeah,
remember Titan AE?
Yeah, I remember Titan AE. I watched it on your recommendation.
Yeah, not like a Critical Darling or anything, but still, like, the design. It was almost like a proto, like a Serenity type of thing with these space characters.
You could imagine it. It'd be interesting if Joss Whedon was in the credits for Titan.
I don't know.
I don't know if he was. I don't know if he was, but like it feels like that kind of like Joss Whedon sci-fi. But yeah, it's sort of like this fun kind of sci-fi, hip kind of cool sci-fi adventure movie. It feels like a script that could have been for a live action movie just as easily as an animated movie. You know.
Right. Couple actual critical darlings though. We had Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh wow!
And then Gladiator was 2000.
Gladiator's very good. I will win the crowd. You know, you can't top some moments from Gladiator. Not like my favorite.
Not entertained. You know, the whole thing.
Yeah, not my favorite Ridley Scott. Shockingly, like really super good. I'm not hating on the movie, but like definitely a great movie.
Yeah, I think it takes place in Spain, does it not? Or is it Rome?
It's Rome because he's a gladiator in the Colosseum,
though, isn't he?
Dude, I'm not the history expert. I don't know what they twisted. It's like
I don't know. My mother recently went to Italy though, and she went to where they filmed at his home. Okay, you know where his wife and kid are taken out there.
Joss Whedon did work on the screenplay for Titan.
He did.
Yeah, he's one of 3 credited screenwriters.
Dude, see that's. But here's the thing: as much as we don't really like Joss Whedon, it is a testament to like how you can identify somebody's work.
Yeah, he's got that kind of style. It later became heavily emulated by a lot of folks, but he's got that kind of like wit and charm to, that he does.
Just a couple more, then we'll move on. One of the worst movies ever made, I think, widely agreed upon, is Battlefield Earth.
Yeah, definitely.
Wasn't that a Scientology movie?
So from what I understand, it's not like per se a Scientology movie, but it's based on a book that was written by L. Ron Hubbard, who later founded Scientology. It's like he's like weirdly like one of the most published authors of all time in terms of like number of words or works or whatever, because like he did a lot of like he would do like shorts in some of those like old pulp magazines and things like that. So like this is like one of his books or novels or shorts or whatever that like. It's a big deal for someone like John Travolta, who is a Scientologist, to adapt it into a film because I don't know. I guess it'd be like find out like Jesus wrote a short story and you're like, we're gonna make a movie of it. Like I don't know. I'm not trying to hate on anything or anything like that. I'm not trying to be insensitive, but like it was very much labeled as like, oh, that's like a weird Scientology movie. But yeah, it was tried. I mean,
Forrest Whitaker's in that. I think.
My mom took us to theaters to see it.
Oh
and
no!
Yeah, we saw the movie in theaters, and I just remember thinking it was just like such an odd, weird movie. I'm so this is 2000. I'm 8, depending on when in the year it came out. So it's like it just felt like a really weird, long movie to me then, and I haven't really. I've seen it since, but like it's nothing like it's still a weird kind of movie. Like I don't know, it's just an oddity.
Does that movie not have a bunch of like Dutch angles? Did it have like a bunch of like weird Dutch?
Before you even knew what those were, it's like they're filming this kind of odd.
Why is this crooked?
Yeah, I guess that was to try and make it feel like otherworldly. Like it's an odd kind of like John Travolta is like an alien with dreadlocks. Like it's
weird.
It's a weird. He looks like Rob Zombie or something. You know? Like it's a weird kind of movie.
Super downer movie. I really don't even want to talk about it, but it deserves a mention. Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah, my natural inclination is that I don't love movies that kind of make me depressed or kind of like drag you down. Like it's just tough. Like as I get older, I'm just like I don't need like the grim, dark, edgy stuff anymore. It's like the world has enough of that as it is, but well-made movie for sure.
All right, last two, and then we'll move on, so we're not here forever. Memento.
Memento's great. Again, not a movie we saw at the time, but a movie we caught up with years later. Christopher Nolan kind of, did Following in '98. Memento is like his next step up in terms of production, and everyone loves the way the storytelling structure of that movie, the reverse chronology. Like it's just like I think the first time I saw it, I think I immediately watched it a second time, like back to back. Like I watched it and then watched it over again immediately. Like it's just really well executed, really engaging movie. Guy Pearce.
Pearce.
Killing it in the lead.
We love Guy Pearce. Yeah. I do. I love Guy Pearce.
No, Guy Pearce is awesome, and like he's great in that. Like, there's a great scene in the movie where he's like, "I'm chasing this guy." He's like, "No, he's chasing me." And like it's just good stuff,
Very unique. Big recommend.
We don't want to spoil anything. We're not trying to spoil any of these movies. We're more encouraging people to like maybe check something out they have not heard of.
Yeah. And then maybe help you avoid some too, like Battlefield Earth.
Yeah.
The last one is a double dipper from our last episode, Godzilla 2000.
Yeah. Technically, Japan was December of '99. Good old Sony brought it over to America in August of 2000. That's when I saw it. My mom took me and my cousin to see it. It's peak cinema for an 8-year-old in August of 2000. It was great. I loved it. I still am a big proponent. I like the edited American version more than the Japanese original version. So
yeah, and it's for a lot of like hardcore Godzilla fans, it is what '98 should have been.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. Anyways, we love that one. We'll do another Godzilla list.
I'm sure we'll do many more.
And just like we'll do a Nolan list very soon. Just to give everybody a heads up, I think we're gonna do like not necessarily a director study, but we're gonna go over a certain director's filmography. And the first one we will be doing is gonna be Christopher Nolan.
Yeah. So heads up for that.
So appropriately timed here. 2001, and we'll kind of brush through these real quick as I'm eager to get to a certain few here.
Yeah.
That gave us Spy Kids, Super Troopers, Ocean's 11, Shrek.
Super Troopers is fun. Shrek is a classic. Grandma took me to see Shrek in theaters.
One of my favorites of all time, and the very endearing Heath Ledger is A Knight's Tale.
Yeah, that one holds up. That's like surprisingly wholesome. Yeah. I remember my dad's a police officer, or was, so like took us to see Super Troopers, and like it's like a very like filthy naughty movie, but like I was still like he took us to see it. Like it's just a fun like a lot of jokes of that still hold up.
Yeah, right meow.
That's great. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Very very quotable. And
the snozzberries taste like snozzberries.
Okay, moving on. That gave us Training Day. Joe Dirt.
Joe Dirt, my God, like easily one of my most watched like DVDs of that era. Like we watch Joe Dirt all the time.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. These comedies were off the chain.
It puts the Joe Dirt in the hole.
Yeah. Zoolander.
Zoolander's good.
Evolution.
Oh, I went to theaters with my uncle to see Evolution. Loved that one. To play the funky music, White Boy. Like totally jam out to that song because of that movie.
Yeah. Then we had Spielberg's AI, Artificial Intelligence, that he picked up. Did he not pick that up from Kubrick?
It was a movie Kubrick was developing, and different sources will tell you different things about how much of a Kubrick movie it stayed versus how much of a Spielberg movie it stayed. But, different people say different things. But, I mean, it feels kind of like this weird hodgepodge of a Kubrick and Spielberg movie. Yeah, it does. It's got the vibes of both. I dig it. It's like a sad kind of movie, but I dig it. It's very well made. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's better than most people give it credit for, but it's also at the same time not one of Spielberg's like best top five.
It's written off a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that kind of I think get lost in the mid 2000s that we're going to talk about. We had another one that's kind of weird. Donnie Darko, that was that year. Jake Gyllenhaal, very odd. Odd movie. Vanilla Sky, which I remember being popular at the time.
Another one of these like VHSs where it's like I remember it being watched in the other room, and then like I would come in and see like the last 10 minutes of it. So like I knew the ending of Vanilla Sky like long before I ever saw like the movie, and it was always just like, why do he like jumps off a building? Like I didn't get it.
Super weird.
Yeah,
but I just remember it making like, and maybe I could be wrong, but I remember it had like headlines at the time for Tom Cruise running through Times Square, and they were shutting down Times Square. Yeah, and it was like a big thing.
And it's got a good musical score.
Yeah. Swordfish. Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry. Yeah, remember that one?
Yep.
She took an extra pay.
She got paid like an extra $1 million or something.
Something like that
to go topless in the movie. Like, hey, make your money.
Yeah, or so I've heard.
Yeah. Who knows?
We got Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. Oh, the Tim
Burton.
Roth. Yeah. Well, it's a Tim Burton movie, but I always think of Tim Roth as.
yeah.
I'm like, his performance under all that makeup was like amazing.
Yeah,
like
it was.
Like that was incredible. Like yeah, Marky Mark was in it. Mark Wahlberg was in it. But like I always think of like I remember being mind blown when I found out that Mr. Orange, Tim Roth, was the ape villain in Planet of the Apes.
Yeah,
But another one I saw in theaters and like I had a bunch of toys and stuff for that one. Like I was really into it as a kid.
Mummy Returns.
Yeah, the less good sequel to The Mummy. The Mummy is an excellent movie, and The Mummy Returns isn't as good, but it's still got a lot of that.
Fun.
Still got that Stephen Sommers kind of fun, wild to it.
If we're honest, what is Mummy Returns famous for? The terrible CGI
On The Rock,
on
yeah.
The Rock, or sorry,
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, Dwayne Johnson, Scorpion King. From what I understand, there's like this crazy specific story about how like their servers crashed or some databases were wiped or something. Like they had like this really crazy crunch to try and do those effects, and so that's why it's especially bad. But that's maybe a little hearsay.
Yeah. Did I mention Saving Silverman? That's one.
I remember that one.
That's one.
That's where he's got the crazy girlfriend that they're trying to protect him from, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. With Jack Black. Yes. Oh my gosh.
I think he discovers that he's
one
gay.
of the friends discovers he's gay by the end of it.
One of them, and then they try
and
to.
one of them ends up with this crazy girlfriend, and then he ends up with the good girl.
Yeah. I remember that one being like not as like popular, but that one was just so funny.
Yeah, I saw it a lot on TV, and like me and my older brother would watch it.
Angelina Jolie's Tomb Raider.
Saw that one in theaters
That's a guilty
as well.
pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. I just remember her fighting that like robot at the beginning, and the poster for that is an iconic movie poster for any kid growing up at that time.
We'll go over a couple more here. Behind Enemy Lines.
That's a fun one.
Yeah, Enemy at the Gate,
Okay. Yeah.
or Gates rather. We had Ali. Will
Ali.
Smith.
Yeah. With Will Smith. The champ is here. That's all I ever remember about that.
Just rapid fire more. Hannibal, From Hell, Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
See, he had Sleepy Hollow and then From Hell. He was like doing
From
these...
Hell really messed me up as a kid. Like that was like I remember though, like I saw it and I like called who the killer was like very early in the movie. Like I just kind of like was like I think it's him. And, my mom was like, how did you? And like she caught herself because she knew how it ended. She'd watched it before. I was like, well, I kind of ruined the movie for myself like very early.
Another cartoon that's kind of similar to Titan AE. They had like the very similar art style back then in animation. Atlantis.
Oh yeah,
Remember
I remember
one?
loving Atlantis. I saw
Was
that.
cool.
I saw that one in theaters. I had a good amount of toys from that one too.
Well, I just love the whole adventure thing. They're going down and like it's very.
I like stuff
Journey to the Center of the Earth feeling.
Yeah, Jules Verne style
Yeah.
kind of. I love stories like that. It's a lot of fun. That's one of those. It's like the undercooked original animated would make a great live action remake.
Right. I agree with that.
Like don't remake the iconic classics. Remake some that feel like they have some improvements to be had.
Same year, but anime, Spirited Away. That was very
Yeah. I'm not the Ghibli guy. I'm not like the lover of the Miyazaki and Ghibli stuff, but I can appreciate it.
I'm pretty sure it is Ghibli. I had to look.
Ghibli.
I had to.
Ghibli,
I had to look this up.
I've heard it both ways.
No, I've heard both, but I think if you now correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody who cares?
Yeah.
Ghibli, I think it's German and it's also Japanese and two different things or whatever. But I'm pretty sure. In this context, it's Ghibli.
Ghibli, okay.
Like,
well, either way,
Ghibli or Ghibli,
oh,
whatever.
okay.
Like with a J.
Ghibli.
Yeah,
So yeah, fair enough.
I knew that was going to come up when I put this on. When I put on the list.
That's okay.
That's why I did that. Another weird one, Brotherhood of the Wolf. Do you remember seeing that?
Yeah, that was one that.
Isn't it French?
The reason that I saw the Fellowship of the Ring twice was because we went to go see the Brotherhood of the Wolf, and at the ticket booth there was a sign saying that it was only subtitled, and my parents were like, "Well, we're not going to read the whole movie," so like we just saw it was they hadn't seen Fellowship of the Ring, but that's why we saw Fellowship. That's how I saw Fellowship of the Ring a second time, but then I remember seeing it on DVD when I had an English dub, and like. I remember thinking it was like super cool as a kid. I don't know how it's aged, but like it just seemed like kind of cool and stylish and badass when I was a kid.
It's like you can't just watch it today and be like, this is the best movie ever.
Yeah.
But it's got that early 2000
that
charm,
flair to it,
and it's definitely got some cool kung fu. It's a very unique movie.
Yeah,
because
it's sort of like
had a 4K release.
Because it's sort of like Victorian era,
It
but
is.
like got like martial arts and stuff,
Yeah.
and like it's kind of a hodgepodge, interesting kind of a movie.
Yeah. I mentioned Planet of the Apes. Let's talk about Jet Li's The One.
Oh God, The One.
The first multiverse movie.
Yeah, the first multiverse movie, and I just remember, thinking it was a masterpiece because it had like Papa Roach on the soundtrack and things like that. Like they dropped the needle of like 2001 era like rock songs like all over that movie. And so when you're a kid, when that music starts playing and then there's fighting, you're like, this is amazing. This is the best movie ever, you know? But
Yeah, I still love that movie. And
it has some interesting visuals that were kind of like, they were going to pull off some stuff that's like was a little hard to pull off at that time. Some of like the fast speed motion and the slow motion and the fighting himself, you know, they went interesting with it.
and Jet Li is big at this time. You know, he makes Cradle to the Grave next with the
Yeah,
DMX.
I remember loving Cradle to the Grave just because it was like a Jet Li martial arts movie. But,
Yeah, and that was rated R. I remember going to be able to sneak into that one a little bit before I was able to.
I didn't see it in theaters, but
I did.
Me and my older brother always roast that movie because it has a song called "Go to Sleep" with Eminem on it as the opening credits music, and so like me and my older brother would just like yell the hook at that to each other all the time.
Then we got two pretty epic war movies the same year. One more critically acclaimed than the other. We had Pearl Harbor and Black Hawk Down.
Nice.
So Black Hawk Down is incredible, incredible 4K if anybody's interested. The audio, I think it actually won for best editing or mix at the time, the Oscar.
Nice.
Black Hawk Down is really good. You know, Ridley Scott. Pearl Harbor, I think it's a lot of hate. It's very,
but it's kind of cool though.
Look, the action stuff, the CGI, the VFX, it's awesome. It's
following the bomb down as it gets dropped, like it's got some cool visuals.
And then recently we discovered that.
Yeah, it was X discovered that Bruce Willis makes like the coolest cameo ever digitally in Pearl Harbor.
It's not confirmed anywhere, but. There's a scene when I think Kate Beckinsale is talking to Jennifer Garner, is it?
Yeah.
And everybody's like freaking out. They're at the hospital scene or whatever.
So like all like the wounded and bandaged people are like walking through in the background, and there is a certain like composited in shot that like looks like it's Bruce Willis from Die Hard.
It looks like John McClane.
Yeah, exactly. Just like walking along in the background. And like when you see it, it like looks so fake, but people are like, no, this is a genuine clip from the movie. It's like, what? It's like, what are you talking about? So Michael Bay putting in a Bruce Willis cameo in the background of Pearl Harbor.
We got the Fast and Furious.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah.
Start of a franchise.
Again, I remember thinking like that was just when Vin Diesel was the guy from Pitch Black to me, and I just, you know, that movie was cool. I just liked that movie.
Yeah, the first one's good.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than the second. The second one's probably like...
It's Point Break with cars, but like it's cool.
Yeah.
You know, it works.
It is. It is very cool. Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I just sound a little too downer on that one, but I love Jurassic Park 3. It's...
as a kid,
quick thrill ride.
Yeah, there's like a 2-year period there as a kid where it was definitely my most watched of them on DVD because it's like a 90-minute movie. It's like super brief, super fast paced. It had the pterodactyls or the pteranodons or whatever doing their thing. I always wanted them to get like their own sequence, you know. And when you're that young, you're like, oh yeah, the Spinosaurus is so cool. It totally wrecks the T-Rex. Like you're on board with it, but it's like
I remember
only when you get older, you're
I
like,
was pressed.
Yeah, okay. Only when you get older are you like, oh man, they did the T-Rex dirty. It's like, no, like
I was
like
salty.
I think I was one of those kids. I was like, yeah, that new Spinosaurus is so much cooler than that old T-Rex. You know, I was like one of those kind of like I fell for the trick.
Not me. I'm die hard. I'm ride or die for Rexy from the T-Rex from the franchise, man.
There you go. I remember I horrified one of my coworkers once who's a big Jurassic Park fan. I'm like, you know, you remember the little dinosaur from the Lost World, the little T-Rex? I'm like, it grew up to be the one that the Spinosaurus killed. They were like, don't you say that. I was like, that's totally it.
You know, it's been confirmed and then debunked and then confirmed again. Yeah. I don't know what it is right this second.
I don't know. If it'll horrify my coworker, I like the idea that the Spinosaurus killed the baby T-Rex from the Lost World.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, a quick special story. I think I mentioned before. I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast, though. Jurassic Park 3 holds a special place in my heart because while I don't condone this anymore, but I was young. I had no choice. I went to go see it with my grandmother, surprisingly, and we were one of the few people in the theater. When the credits rolled, she looked at me and was like, that was awesome. And I'm like, yeah, Grandma, that was awesome. It's Jurassic Park, and it's cool, and there's dinosaurs. And she's like, do you want to watch it again? And I'm like, are you serious? And I was like, heck yeah. So we stayed through the credits and just watched it again twice in a row, back to back. It was the only time I've ever done that.
No one came in to be like, hey folks, you got to leave or anything.
No,
like that.
and I think it was a weird thing where the people coming in to clean it were like, oh, they just must be really
early for the next show. Yeah, because a big movie like that's not
they weren't
unusual.
like so hardcore. There weren't assigned seats back then.
And they probably were like, dude, it's an old lady. There's no way she snuck in. You know, they're probably like, look, they're just here. She's just brought the kid early. He's probably excited.
And it was like a middle of the day showing too. It wasn't like
so there you go. They probably also didn't care. They're like, we're not getting paid enough to kick people out of this movie. You know.
Yeah. I'll go with two more and then we'll move on. A big one I want to talk about. I don't know if you remember Frailty. Do you remember a movie called Frailty?
I remember the movie called Frailty. I do not think I've ever seen Frailty.
All right, so I really encourage everybody to watch Frailty. It's Bill Paxton and Matt McConaughey, and Bill Paxton actually was a directorial debut.
Everyone always says it's really good.
Yeah, it's better than it has any right to be. It's a little, it can be kind of like, I don't want to say the word sensitive because it's, kind of about religion or whatever. But the premise is that, he gets a message from God. And I'm just kind of summarizing based off memory here. It might not be exact, but he is basically told by God to take out people that are demon possessed or that actually are demons, and he actually has a gift where he can sense what people did. Like he can see if they've killed somebody.
This sounds like way cooler than what I thought. I thought this was like a legal court murder mystery movie. I must be thinking of some totally different kind of movie.
No.
Wow, this movie sounds hardcore.
Yeah, you got to do your homework on this one. Go check it out.
Wow.
So he's got two boys that he drags into this, right? And there's this really cool dynamic. The movie is actually, I believe, Matt McConaughey. It starts off him telling the story about what's going on and what happens. And without getting into it, this movie has twists, right? And it kind of relies on those twists for some payoffs. Okay. So don't get spoiled by it.
Cool.
But it's very good. Like
Bill Paxton and Matthew McConaughey like hunting demons. That's pretty hardcore.
Well, it's kind of like
no, I know it's much more subtle than that.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where you kind of question like, all right, is this legit? Or
is
they
it crazy?
Yeah,
I got you.
And
that still sounds fun.
Yeah, no, it's
wow.
It's
There's some other movie that starts with an F that I'm thinking of that is like some kind of murder mystery, something that I'm clearly associating Frailty with.
Yeah, I kept in my head saying, remember The Faculty? I don't know what year that was.
Oh, that was like 98. The Faculty, Robert Rodriguez. With the monster. I always remember the monster swimming in the pool at the end.
And
like it goes. Yeah. Oof. Yeah.
Anyways, last one, The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings: Fellowship of the Ring trilogy launched 2001. First time I ever had a friend come over to spend the night at my house, and we watched the movie. And also I the earliest movie I can remember seeing in a theater twice, all the way through, and it being a 3-hour movie. First time I didn't sit right next to my mom or dad in the theater. Me and my buddy were like, can we go sit up closer? And we sat right underneath a speaker, and so every time it blared and screamed, it was just blowing our eardrums. But it was just wild 3-hour journey,
Yeah, I don't
love Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, we'll have a Lord of the Rings episode. We keep saying we'll have this episode, but
yeah,
we will.
We can't. Yeah, we can't. We could freestyle 2 hours of Lord of the Rings here.
Yeah. 2002. Moving on because we're already at 46 minutes into this.
When we get 2 hours.
Well, we can do whatever. It's our podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, 2002. We'll start off with quite a dud. Die Another Day. This is the one that I thought about in the last one.
Yeah, this is the lame one.
The one where Pierce Brosnan is famous for parasurfing. I don't know if that's
on a very bad CGI tidal
terrible
wave. Yeah, the best thing about it is that it's got Halle Berry in it, and she's always gorgeous. But outside of that,
that was the end of that franchise or his run as 007.
Yeah.
I'll go with this one. This is the wife's favorite movie. Well, at least growing up. I'm pretty sure it still is. Lilo and Stitch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Lilo and Stitch. Yeah. By then, I was definitely not really watching cartoons.
No, me neither.
Anymore. I think 2001 was definitively with Shrek and Ice Age and stuff like that. Yeah. Definitively last year, I was asking to go to cartoon movies. After that, I was all up into action movies and superhero movies and things.
I did remember watching Scooby-Doo, though.
Yeah, I saw Scooby-Doo.
Written by James Gunn, I believe?
Yeah, James Gunn wrote, I think, both of those live-action Scooby-Doos.
Yeah.
But, I remember seeing that.
Equilibrium.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Again,
that was a crazy gun fu one.
Yeah, we did. Again, that's not one that we came up watching, but years later, everyone would always be like, oh man, Matrix was lame. Equilibrium's where it's at. It was the internet snobs version of the Matrix, but Christian Bale kind of being awesome. It's kind of got it's got a lot of genres in it. It's got some 1984 vibes. It's got some Matrix vibes. It's got some gung fu. It's really cool to be a low budget movie. It's got some awesome stuff.
Another Christian Bale one of my all-time favorites. I think the first DVD I've ever owned.
Oh, I think this is the first.
No, I gotta take
I
it
think
back
I know what you're gonna mention.
Yeah, the first one I think I got was the Godzilla. I pre-ordered that one, Godzilla 2000. So this was one of the first ones I think.
I know the movie you're gonna mention though.
Yeah,
Rain of Fire. Yeah, I saw that one in theaters as well. And again, I just remember that was the first movie I remember because all the commercials were Christian Bale, Matthew McConaughey. That was the first movie that I was aware of oh, it's got Christian Bale, Matthew McConaughey. I'm 10 years old. My parents were who the heck are they? I'm I don't know, but they're in the movie. But I dug that. I dug the movie. I wish that it was more open war, large scale Dragon War stuff. But it's a cool post-apocalyptic movie.
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey has like the most like anticlimactic and gut wrenching deaths ever in that movie.
But he's
spoiler.
bald. He's bald.
Yeah, he's bald. He's animalistic. He's grunting like half the movie. It's a wild film.
Yeah,
it's a wild film.
Some shots are kind of wonky, but others, the VFX are
The dragon
still
stuff looks very,
so
very good. And I love the concept that they shoot chemicals from two glands in the mouth that combine and incinerate to create their fire breath, like a little bit of a science to it.
There's some gorgeous shots, like when McConaughey is jumping backwards with the shotgun under the tank. And the one male dragon's lighting up the whole convoy.
Dude, when they show how large the male dragon is relative to all of the females, like just to do the scale, like a lot, like pretty ambitious movie for what it was.
Gerard Butler's also in
Gerard
there.
Butler's like the third, he's like the number 3 kind of lead in the first part of the movie. And that's the kind of movie that if you were to pitch a post-apocalyptic dragon movie now with Matthew McConaughey, Christian Bale, and Gerard Butler, everyone would be like, give that thing $150 million budget, it's going to be huge. Like, it's one of these movies that's like, it's weirdly ahead of its time because it's like, had all these people before they were like, as big as they were going to be, and it's like, man, kind of 10 years too early because it would have been huge 10 years later.
I know, I love that one. Shout out for another Guy Pearce movie, though, The Time Machine.
Yeah, I saw that one in theaters. Yeah, fun, super
Time
fun, cool movie. I remember like being like mesmerized and enchanted when he's going forward and you're seeing like fashion evolve and the world evolve around him, and like the dress on the lady on the poster like gets shorter and shorter and shorter as like fashion's evolving, like shorter and shorter skirts. It's like, I remember that was just like a mind-blowing movie to me when I first saw it.
Yeah. Funny little comedy, Kung Pao. I'm going to rapid fire these. So
Kung Pao Into the Fist is wild.
It's so stupid.
Totally, yeah. My favorite scene in that movie is when he's about to get hit with the iron claw in the face and it freeze frames. He goes, at this point, I had 2 options. Option A, jump to the side and take him out with a spinning back kick. Option B, take the claw to the face, roll on the ground, and die. And then it hits him in the face and he rolls on the ground. And he's like, I should have went with option A. I'm like, it's absurd, but like, I love... That movie's mostly stupid humor, but like some of it's really legit, and I love it.
But what's really cool about it is, as far as a filmmaking standpoint, is how it takes a lot of stuff from actual movies.
A lot of actual stock
like,
footage from old movies and digitally puts the main actor in, which is like wild. I thought they just made it to make it look old and cheapy,
and it's
but
actually
it's like
kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy. Kind of, again, experimental CGI days where they're like, what else can we do? What can you do with all this technology, you know?
You remember Ghost Ship?
Yeah, I saw that in theaters. I was a horror movie junkie as a kid. Like teenage me, like preteen teenage me was like huge horror movie junkie. So saw Ghost Ship. Emily Browning, totally had a crush on her because I was a little kid too. You know, totally thought that she was cute.
Famous for, I think, its opening. With
The opening scene is wild. I remember because it starts off with like this cheery song and then it has this brutal opening scene that we won't spoil. And it's like, oh my gosh, like what am I in store for here? And
all in front of poor Emily Browning.
And a typical twist that horror that was like very trendy in early 2000 horror movies to have like the dark twist where it's like the bad guys kind of win. Like that was like very popular. And like also 2000s horror movies always end with like a hard rock song as the end credits song. Like that was the thing. Like that's how you knew they were edgy and cool. So Ghost Ship is no different there.
Another year, so Spielberg, he's got a couple like 2-for-1 years, right?
Okay.
This year he did Minority Report and Catch Me If You Can.
Nice. Definitely more of a fan of Minority Report.
I think Minority Report, I'm going to say it now, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, it's great. I don't know if I'd call it a masterpiece, but like it's awesome. Like
I think it's so well.
There's a lot about it that really, really, really
it's
works.
So good.
It's really like I'm not hating on it. It's great.
Yeah,
maybe it is a masterpiece. I mean, it is really good. The more I'm thinking about it, like it is a damn good movie.
Yeah.
Like it feels so like gritty and sci-fi with the way the cinematography is and the color grading. You can tell digital color grading was becoming a thing there. Like it's got that bleachy look to it. It's really interesting.
I just think it's got this fully evolved world. Like the cereal boxes are animated and like, you know, it just so many scenes from that movie like stick with me so much. You know, what even like not even the action set pieces where he's got the red ball and he rolls it on the desk
and the other guy, and Colin Farrell catches it.
He goes,
Colin Farrell.
How do you know that was gonna fall? It was gonna fall if you didn't catch. You know, that whole thing is just perfect.
Yeah, it's a head tripper in terms of like if you stop something from happening, do you have a guarantee that it was gonna happen? And like
but it didn't happen because I caught it. And it was going to.
And it's all about like fate and predeterminism and free will and all that stuff. Like it's a good sci-fi movie.
And I think shout out for me for the cinematographer of that. I don't remember his first name. I think it was like Janis something Kaminsky. So
okay, yeah.
He does a lot of the Spielberg movies. He's done a lot of them for sure. And he's actually he's a cinematographer for the new John Krasinski movie coming out.
Oh,
If.
really? Okay, nice. All right,
Yeah,
interesting.
shout out to If. That's going to be a good family movie coming up. But anyways, that whole thing that he played with light, a lot of like the light coming from the background. You remember the scene where Tom Cruise is sitting with the precog, the main one, Agatha, I believe,
Yeah.
and she goes, "You need to run," and then run.
Yeah.
And like how the light is behind, almost angelic. Like that lighting, Spielberg's movies throughout the
Yeah,
early 2000s
it's got this really,
have
like-
that through line.
Yeah,
of-
there's like washed out kind of like
Yeah.
look to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's he has that in a few of the movies around there, and I actually really dig it. Anyways, we had Men in Black 2. Shout out Dog Soldiers, one of my favorite. That's
yeah.
I'm a big
I
werewolf
knew
guy
you were
over
gonna mention Dog
vampires.
Soldiers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dog
it's
Soldiers.
it's good. I remember I saw it on TV, and it's like it's a cool like creature feature B movie kind of a it's fun.
Yeah, it's a great 4K transfer. By the way, on
Nice.
the disc. Then we had a couple movies that actually had to alter and edit the before release because of the tragedy of 9/11. Collateral Damage and Spider-Man.
Yeah, I remember Collateral Damage. My dad took us to see that in
Yeah.
theaters, and I remember
Schwarzenegger.
being really into that movie. I remember like unintentionally laughing at some moments. There's a scene where he's like, "You want collateral damage? I'll show you effing collateral damage," and he's like throwing a fit and stuff. And like, I remember my brother pointed out to me that like he was a fireman and like he kills a guy with a fire axe, and like I laughed at inappropriate moments in that
Right.
movie, but like I was a kid, like don't whatever. But yeah, Spider-Man was iconic. 2002
Spider-Man.
put the superhero movie on the map in a huge way. Made $800 million worldwide in 2002. Very massive. Yeah. Fun fact, apparently Sony's big lesson from Godzilla 98 that they learned was that they needed to not get someone who wasn't a fan to make these big properties. And so they intentionally, when putting Spider-Man together, sought out a director who was a fan. So that's part of how Sam Raimi got Spider-Man. So Spider-Man 2002 fans, you can thank Godzilla 98 for your movie being awesome.
Yeah, I love that one. I'm thinking it was scientist myself.
Yeah, the memes are insane. It's like a really wholesome classic movie.
Yeah, I see a lot of posts online where people say it doesn't hold up.
Dude, it totally holds up, dude.
I disagree 100%. The film jump believes
Yeah.
Spider-Man holds up.
The whole Spider-Man Raimi trilogy holds up. Granted, the first two maybe hold up better than the third one, but they collectively hold up. I'd take them over any of the crap Marvel's producing these days.
Yeah. Let's see. Going over a couple other ones real quick here. We had the Two Towers.
Yeah, Two Towers, the next chapter of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, continues to be awesome and perfect. Don't have a lot of things to say about a franchise that just continues to be great.
Yeah. We'll do a deep dive later.
Gollum was exceptional, sort of the child of Jar Jar Binks, kind of the next evolution. People really impressed with CGI animation.
A war film. Another Mel Gibson. We Were Soldiers.
Yeah,
That was a good one.
super underrated.
Yep.
Again, watch that one. It's just like war movies always hit me hard when I was growing up. Like it just something about them was so real that it's just wild. Great movie.
Rapid Fire. Count of Monte Cristo. Gangs of New York.
Gangs of New York's wild.
Pianist. The Ring.
Pianist, The Ring. Oh, The Ring messed me up as a kid.
Triple
oh my
X.
gosh, Triple X was fun.
Scorpion King.
Oh my gosh, these are all like schlocky movies I saw in theaters.
Sum of All Fears. Remember that?
Didn't see Some of All Fears, but like Triple X and Scorpion King, like dude, I watched those movies like crazy on DVD.
Jackass. The first Jackass.
Wow. Yeah, I remember I was kind of like not allowed to watch that one really because like there's some
Yeah, that's one we watched later.
there's some edgy kind of gags and pranks and stuff in there, but I remember I'd see it eventually.
Born Identity. That started the
Yeah.
Bourne franchise was that year.
Yeah, didn't catch up to those till years later.
Attack of the Clones. I don't know if I mentioned that
Oh,
one.
here
You know.
I'm a prequel fan. Love Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
sorry,
There's
like
some awkward. There's some awkward,
Yeah.
kind of chemistry scenes.
But
in
that's
there.
kind of the point, though. You know, like I said, we can do a whole deep dive. But
Yeah,
like,
we will.
there's a I will defend the prequels for sure.
Serenity, Insomnia.
Serenity was in 2002.
I believe so. Yeah.
No way, no, 2005, buddy.
Maybe there's
Firefly probably started.
Oh, yeah,
in
you're right,
2002.
you're right.
The show
Firefly.
Firefly.
Firefly, thank
Yeah,
you.
Yeah,
Yes.
no problem, no
Yeah,
problem.
Firefly.
Yeah, I was about to say, don't pull that on me.
Precursor to Serenity.
Yeah, exactly.
Always with the fact checking. That's why we're here.
I can't help it.
And then I think we'll just. Resident Evil.
Ah, the first Resident
one.
Evil?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I remember like in that post-Matrix world where like Trinity and Neo were very, very cool, there's like a whole subgenre of movies that kind of diverge from there. Like the Resident Evils and the Underworlds are like, okay, everyone loved Trinity, so like what's like a Trinity movie that we can make? So that's like where Resident Evil and Underworld come from, things like that. And love the first Resident Evil movie. They kind of get progressively worse, but I remember thinking the first one was like really cool.
Yeah. Shout out to my first movie that I saw with Jason Statham with The Transporter.
Oh, nice. See, I didn't see
Yeah.
the first Transporter. I saw Transporter 2, and I saw there's like some other movie he was in. Was it The Italian Job that had Jason Statham in it?
Marky Mark.
Yeah. So
don't
like
remember.
I saw that, I think, you know. But he like is the main guy, but I remember thinking he was actually in the one. Was actually the first Jason Statham when he still had hair.
You're right.
When he
Oh
still
my
had
gosh,
hair.
yeah.
Because I remember every time I saw him after that, I was like, that's the guy from the one.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember. Even though the one was, I remember watching the Transporter first.
Oh, you might have.
That was my introduction
Yeah,
to
you might
Jason
have.
Statham.
You might have.
I just so vividly remember the scene where I don't know if you can, but he runs up and kicks the door in, and it starts playing this like
Yeah,
kinda-
that was in the trailers. Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember
yeah.
thinking the trailer for
Yeah.
the Transporter looked awesome. But
Yeah.
like, I always remember Jason Statham to me is always the guy from the one. Like,
Yeah.
it's definitely I saw him in that first.
And then I think we'll just go ahead and 2002 with one of our favorites, my top 5, Signs.
Signs, masterpiece.
I think it's M. Night Shyamalan's magnum opus. I don't
For
care what
me,
anybody says.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of like I don't like to call movies perfect, but you could make
The experience
you
is
could
perfect.
make a defense of Signs being like perfectly kind of structured and delivered, and you know you kind of got to go on the journey that the film's offering, but like accept the film on its own terms. But I love that movie to death. You know,
Yeah, so,
mileage may vary, but
Yeah, so for the listeners out there, I kind of struggled with my asthma at that time, and I was hospitalized. I think before that or after that. Like I said, I struggled with asthma, and the main character's son, Mel Gibson's son, which Culkin brother was it? Rory. Is it Rory Culkin?
yeah, I think so.
One of the
The
Culkins.
character was Morgan.
Yeah, Morgan. The character. Anyways, he has asthma. It's like this very, relatable thing. It all crescendos perfectly in the end. What a beautiful third act. The scary parts of it. I think we'll do a full deep dive on Signs. one day.
Signs could absolutely be. There's a lot, and as I've aged, like that movie, because like the Mel Gibson and his younger brother, and like Mel Gibson has a son and daughter, and then he's got his younger brother there. Like as you get older, like I've got an older brother with a son and daughter, now 2 daughters, and but it's like different things about that movie resonate with me at different points in my life. So like it's just I don't know. It always hits hard for me. It's great. I love
that
it.
one. Moving on to 2003, and by all means, if I forget one that's
You're
super
good.
big,
You're good.
I'm gonna definitely rapid fire because I'm eager to get on to a couple later years here. But 2003 gave us Christmas time, Elf. We
Okay.
got Big Fish.
Okay.
X-Men 2.
X-Men 2, X2 is good. I hated that like the title on the movie is
X2.
X2 and it's called X2 X-Men United.
Yeah.
It's like
Brian-
it should be called X2 Mutants United, but whatever,
Yeah.
because the X-Men are always united. There's uniting with the other mutants that are not part of the X-Men, but whatever.
I
That's
think-
just nerdy stuff.
I think X2 is fantastic.
It's very good. Dude,
we don't really talk about Bryan Singer anymore, but back then
Yeah.
he was a good director.
he was on
for sure.
point. The Nightcrawler stuff is excellent.
Excellent. We had Daredevil. Shout out to the director's cut only.
Yeah, the director's cut
Ben Affleck.
is the only version worth watching. Definitely put Evanescence on the map. I
Yeah,
remember that soundtrack
big
was
time.
like big. I don't know the timing of if the music was big, then the movie was big, but like I'm pretty sure the decision to put the music in the movie kind of predated them actually blowing up as a band. So it was just this thing where it's like right when it happened, it felt too timely. Oh wow, this super awesome band now has like 3 songs in your movie. Like, oh, what a coincidence. But like pretty sure they were a little bit ahead of the game when they made those decisions.
Yeah,
but
and
I
that-
mean, I loved it as a kid. You know?
it had the needle drop songs.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
I
Colin Farrell as Bullseye is like a good kind of hammy, like Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin, like that's not a bad choice. Like the movie's a little
R.I.P.
too early 2000s, like it's a little too schlocky, but it's like it had a lot of cool stuff going on. It's fun,
Underworld.
Underworld, oh man, Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah, a good one. Dwayne Johnson's The Rundown with Sean William Scott.
They're a fun duo.
yeah.
They were like before
Rundown's
Dwayne
great.
Johnson and Kevin Hart were doing 20 movies. Like you could have seen those two doing like a couple of movies like that.
Sean Connery's swan song, I believe, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Was that his
Yeah.
last movie? Was
Yeah,
he? He may have been.
think. Yeah,
excuse me, something after that.
I think
but
he voiced some like animated thing, but like as far as like a real official movie, which is a shame because he turned down the Gandalf role in Lord of the Rings because he didn't understand the material. And then when the Lord of the Rings was huge, he said that like the next thing he got offered where he didn't really understand it, he was just going to take it on a chance, and that was League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen was kind of like a flop.
I like the movie.
It has some great moments in it.
Yeah.
I like the practical Dr. Jekyll and Mr.
Yeah.
Hyde effects,
There's
things
some
like
good stuff.
that.
Good stuff.
You know.
Kill Bill, Volume 1.
Oh wow, yeah, Quentin Tarantino kind of doing his like actions,
Yeah.
Asian, cinema thing. Like
The
really
first
cool.
Pirates of the Caribbean came out.
2003.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2003 is gosh, saw that in theaters. Like that was one that the first time I saw it in theaters, I didn't really love it, but then like on the DVD age, like my fandom of that movie exploded.
The Core. I remember liking The Core.
I remember wanting to see it and never seeing
Is that
it.
Aaron Eckhart?
I think Aaron Eckhart is in that one.
he's
Yeah.
that one. It's a disaster movie, but it's not the best, but it's still kind of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. Bruce Almighty. That one was really big, which then later on gave us Evan Almighty, which I think was the most expensive comedy ever made.
Yeah, which like what were they thinking on that?
I don't
But, you
know.
know,
Holes.
Holes is good.
Shia LaBeouf putting on the map.
I remember that was like a Sunshine State readers book, and like our class was like collectively reading that as a class all year. And then like I was the one that I was like, there was a website called upcomingmovies.com, and I was like, and I went to my teacher. I was like, "There's a movie of Holes coming out in April. Like we should see it." And then like our classes saw it as a field trip, you know. And I was like, it was crazy because then Shia LaBeouf went on to become like a megastar. So it's just like this weird moment where it's like we saw that movie in theaters and like read the book and like he became a huge star after. It's like it was just such a weird like way that lined up.
Let's go with the Hulk. Ang Lee's the Hulk.
Yeah, Hulk. Saw it around my birthday, around my 11th
Which I could
birthday.
have sworn was 2004, but
No, Hulk was 03. And yeah, like it does a lot of things right and a lot of things maybe not so right, but like it's aged pretty well because it's just kind of like a unique movie now. At the time, people wanted their big, super crazy, smashing thing. Danny Elfman kills the score. The score is awesome from Danny Elfman, like hypnotic, like really good. You know, Ang Lee, it's like, I don't mean to overpraise, but it's like he was kind of making a better movie.
He was making a movie.
He was making a better movie than people wanted him to make. They just wanted like a Michael Bay Hulk.
They wanted the
smash.
Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They wanted the crazy thing, and he tried to go a little bit more thoughtful, which has made it age well. Because all the other Hulk movies don't really dive into the character side of it very much, so it's like, okay, it feels wasted.
Yeah, so I recently caught it on Netflix. I believe it was on like the Leaving Soon category, and I put it on. I didn't get to watch all of it. What doesn't age very well is like the shade, the color of Hulk himself.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, like
The motion and movement's really
the
solid.
CGI is,
Yeah.
and I remember him talking about how expensive it was, and he did the mocap for a lot of or most of it.
Yeah.
That scene in the desert when he's like beating up the
Oh,
tanks
great.
and like
you get like a 20-minute sequence where he's the Hulk just battling tanks, battling helicopters and all this stuff. Like it's so good.
it takes him to space, like
the upper, like the atmosphere, you know?
If the listeners haven't watched that in a while, give it a rewatch. It's much better.
Yeah,
than
watch
than
it
I
with an
remember.
open mind. You know, it's a slow burn, but like it's pretty legit. It's a little bit better than it got. Definitely better than its reputation at the time. You know, so
Yeah.
Terminator 3 was
Terminator 3.
2003.
I was
There
going to
we
say
go.
that next.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. Yeah, I was about to say, I
Terminator
was like,
3.
because I remember there was a big debate with my brother over like who would win, the Terminator or the Hulk, and like, you know, it's like, well, the Hulk would like completely smash the Terminator. Like, it's the Hulk for crying out loud,
right,
you
and
know.
he
But
heals in that
but
one.
we were huge Terminator fans. We're like, well, maybe Terminator could win, you know. Like, I don't know, but
I think Terminator 3 is good.
good. Terminator 3 is like an overall good movie with just a lot of bad moments like checkered throughout it, like a lot of cringy humor and things like that. Even as a kid, like there's like continuity mistakes with the first two that even as a kid I was like, that doesn't make sense. He wasn't 13 in Terminator 2, he was 10, you know, like things like that. But it's like Terminator 3 like has some great, like the CGI for that still holds up like super, super well. The action scenes are like really,
They're
like,
very
you want to
good.
talk about like proto Michael Bay Transformers like action scenes, like when they're like smashing through stuff and
He's
just
holding
like,
onto the vehicle and he's smashing through the buildings.
yeah,
And
great fight scenes, like breaking the toilets over each other's heads and stuff. Like it's just like, I don't know, like a lot of cool spectacle. Like it felt like they had an infinite budget on that movie. Like it's just very
And the ending, I love the ending of that
gut
one.
punch ending. Like the first time I ever saw like a big mainstream movie like that, where it was like this kind of bittersweet kind of like what kind of ending. Like great ending.
A couple more, then we'll move on. We have a 2 for like a period piece here. Master and Commander was
Okay.
also that year.
Solid movie.
And The Last Samurai.
See, I was much more of a
I
Last
love
Samurai kid than Master and Commander kid, but I love The Last Samurai.
So correct me if I'm wrong, and I haven't read into it. I didn't
Okay.
look into it. I don't know.
all right.
But when I see The Last Samurai, I don't believe that it's talking about Tom Cruise's character being. I think it's like the last of the samurai.
Yeah, like because you don't say samurais plural.
Well, and I know
you?
it can kind of it could work both ways, in that he is kind
Yeah.
of. But I think it just means like this is an end of an era, kind of,
Yeah.
and it's not like
Yeah.
the white savior, so to
Yeah,
speak.
exactly. Yeah, because I remember when that movie came
Got
out. There's-
backlash, I think.
Yeah,
for
well,
that.
there was like this bit on Chappelle Show where it was like, I got an idea for a movie, The Last Black Guy on Earth, starring Tom Hanks. Like, you know, it's
Yeah.
like okay, it's like I don't think like they literally like, but you know, it is what it is. But I remember, Yeah, I like The Last Samurai a lot. Very cool.
I think it's really moving.
Samurais are cool. Yeah, and it's a good like Last Stand kind of a movie. You know, I like stuff like that.
That last hurrah that they do,
Yeah.
and then
Ken Watanabe he's a legend.
He got nominated for that.
Yeah, he's a legend.
His line where he tells them about the cherry blossoms and says that they are all beautiful or they're all perfect, rather.
Yeah.
Dude, I think it's so good. I love The Last Samurai.
Yeah.
The Matrix 2 and 3.
Matrix 2.
Which
2
was
and 3.
crazy to think about. That one dropped in
Yeah.
May and then the other one November.
Yeah, they filmed back to back. I have to tell my story of my uncle explaining the plot of The Matrix 2 to my brother. So me, my uncle, my aunt were going into The Matrix 2 because I was a huge fan of The Matrix. My older brother like never seen The Matrix. So him and my cousin saw some other like R-rated comedy or something that was much shorter than the 2.5 hour Matrix 2. Then like their movie ended and they come in and like, you know, with like 30-40 minutes left of Matrix 2 and like they asked my uncle, who God bless him, he's from Mississippi, he's a Mississippi guy, and like they're trying to ask him to like explain, like tell me what's going on, like just give me the quick stuff so I know what's going on. My uncle's like eyes are going like back to the screen, back to my brother, back to the screen, back to my brother, and he leans and he goes, okay, so there's a Matrix, and that's the first line of his summary of how he's going to try and
here's what you have to know
in the middle of the movie explain how the Matrix works. It's like it's one of the most complicated things to explain in the middle of it, but like I just cry laughing whenever I think of that. But yeah, the Matrix.
You know, you could argue, it might ruin the lore, so to speak, and this and that. But The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolution,
They got great action sequences.
They are better action movies than most action movies today. They hold up extremely well. They're super cool, man. Like
the final Neo Smith fight in Matrix 3 makes almost the entirety of 2 and 3 worth it. It's like it's a rocky road to get there, but like to get that final one-on-one battle and it's so iconic and epic. I love it.
it's like the closest we'll get to an actual live action like anime Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
Until they do it justice. Yeah, I like the sequels. I really do.
Yeah. The first one's a masterpiece on its own, but like 2 and 3 are better than a lot of people give them credit for, and certainly like 4 doesn't even deserve to exist.
All right, Chris, tell us what the biggest movie of 2003 was.
The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King.
Yep.
Sweeped the Oscars 11 for 11, which
Is 3 in history, right?
Well, it's 3. It's tied with Ben-Hur and Titanic for wins, which is 11. But as far as going 11 for 11, that's the biggest full sweep, because Titanic was nominated for like 14 and won 11. So, but as far as like winning everything it was nominated for, Return of the King has the biggest sweep. So fully deserved. Tricked like 11-year-old me into thinking that the Oscars always nominated and awarded the big popular movies that I love.
Movie.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, of course Lord of the Rings would win, but then I found out quickly, like, no, it's not like that every year. Like, it's not like all like Batman's gonna win every year or something like that. But
maybe it's for another time. But I would go out on a limb and say that the Lord of the Rings, you could look at it as one like whole movie, just 3 parts or whatever. But I think the Lord of the Rings is the best trilogy ever made.
I think it's certainly an easy case to make. You'd have to dig to find an argument for a better trilogy than the Lord of the Rings.
And to end on
trilogy.
such a high note, like
as far as consistency and quality and like the evenness, like it just really is a well-rounded, well-delivered trilogy. It's iconic.
Yeah, we'll deep dive it later. 2004, Rapid Fire, National Treasure, Shrek 2,
Oh wow.
Dodgeball.
Okay. You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Yeah, Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy.
Ooh, very underrated.
good.
Super underrated.
Van Helsing.
Love Van Helsing. Love that movie to death. I will sing its praises forever. The remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the
Zack
Dead.
Snyder.
That's next on my list.
Yeah, there you go. Because Dawn of the Dead was April and Van Helsing was May. My mom took me to see both of those. Dawn of the Dead like introduced me to Zack Snyder, introduced me to The Man Comes Around by Johnny Cash. Like just like an awesome, like for me, like greatest zombie movie ever, Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, for sure. Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, also excellent, dude.
I think in an argument to be made for one of the best superhero movies ever.
Yeah. I mean,
For sure.
Doc Ock, like Alfred Molina as Doc Ock in that movie is like, I'd never seen anything that dude had been in, and it was like a mind-blowing kind of performance.
M. Night Shyamalan, somewhat disappointing The Village.
I remember after Signs, I was the one, being a horror fan. I was riding the high. I was like, oh my gosh, guys, this is going to be so good, so good, so good. Tried like my whole family, and then like we were all kind of very let down by like the twist. Like the drama and the music and the cinematography of the film is all very well done, and like the first half of it's like, you think it's awesome, and then the twists are just kind of deflating and let down, and then they kind of think they're gonna go back on the twist, so that it's like they like double and triple the twist up, and it's just like really unsatisfying by the end of it.
He was hot off of the Sixth Sense and Signs, so he could do no wrong. But and then to get that, it's like nowadays people who are familiar with Shyamalan are like, oh well, you know, it's par for the course. But back then, you know,
I think he thought that like after Sixth Sense and Signs, that like if he made like a real movie, that he was gonna maybe get like major awards recognition or something. Like that was maybe him going for like a more serious recognition than they would give him if the Creatures and Monsters,
even being younger at that time, I was still disappointed.
Yeah, it's not a great movie.
Anyways, Butterfly Effect. Shout out to that one.
Messed me up as a kid.
That is
on
a
DVD.
yes.
On DVD, I watched the director's cut first, which has a much darker ending than the theatrical version, and
I'm not familiar. Honestly,
okay, so spoilers, I suppose, but the director's cut basically ends with him going back and deciding that the world would be better if he'd never been born at all, so he does what he needs to do to make that happen.
And alive,
he goes back to the womb and like strangles himself, and it's like it's like as a kid, I was like, oh, like it messed me up so hard. And then like I watched because like my parents had watched the one with the other ending. I was like, the ending was so bad. They're like, oh, just because, and like we had watched different endings of the movie, but messed up ending.
Yeah, the traditional one ends with them just like kind of seeing each other in the city.
They're both
successful,
much more hopeful tone. Yeah.
Day After Tomorrow, kind of whatever.
Yeah, Roland Emmerich on the backslide there, from
young
peaking.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Emmy Rossum.
Yeah.
She's
Dennis
gorgeous.
Quaid. Troy, love Troy.
Troy was always really fun. I remember that was the first time that it was like it felt like there wasn't good guys, bad guys. It was just two sides fighting.
To this day, the fight between
Achilles,
Eric Bana, and
Achilles and Hector.
Achilles and Hector. Still, when I watch it to this day, I'm like, man, I don't know who to root for. Yeah, it is so good.
It's edge of your seat. And the only thing I knew about my Greek mythology, going into that, the Odyssey and things, was that the Achilles heel was a thing. I didn't know how it tied into everything. So like the whole movie, I'm like, when is the Achilles heel like gonna play into it? So like I never knew at what point, at what battle they were gonna like discover his Achilles heel and take him out. So I didn't know if Hector was gonna win that fight or not. So like I was on the edge of my seat that whole movie. It was very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, Swords and Sandals epic. I think it was
one of the better ones.
Wolfgang Peterson. Yeah, he did very well in that one.
And Sean Bean, like, in a really cool, like, I always thought he was really awesome.
He was Odysseus, right?
Yeah, he was Odysseus. And, like, I always thought, we read Odysseus and the Odyssey in school, so, like, I was like, oh, he's Odysseus. Like, I always really liked Odysseus, so I liked Sean Bean in that movie.
Moving on, Aviator, $1 Million Baby.
Oh, wow, $1 Million Baby is sad.
Yeah, AVP, Alien vs. Predator.
Oh, wow. It's cool when you're 12, not cool the minute you turn, like, 14.
It's still fun.
Yeah, it's fun, but,
Chronicles of Riddick.
Yeah, the not as great sequel to Pitch Black. Like, it had its potential, but it's like, just not as good. It went for it, but
another Swords and Sandals epic, but kind of weird. Alexander.
Colin Farrell. Yeah, and there's been like four
Oliver
different
Stone,
and there's been like 4 different cuts of that movie since. Some of them better. Like it's an interesting, and wide-reaching kind of movie, but it's not very great.
King Arthur was that year.
See, I liked King Arthur. Clive Owen. I like King Arthur a lot. I like Clive Owen. Got Mads Mikkelsen in an early role in there. Like Keira Knightley. Like I remember. I dug that one a lot. It's not these days. I'd be much more inclined to get like a typical, more of the legend kind of version of the story. But like that one, I remember thinking it was really cool at the time.
Passion of the Christ was. That year.
I mean, iconic. Masterpiece.
Yeah, regardless of your belief, I think that is a good movie, and I think it's very moving. And I think it's a big record, highest grossing R-rated movie of all time at that time, right?
Yeah, and in North America, it still is $377 million.
Oh, domestically,
still is in North America. At the time, it was, I think, only The Matrix Reloaded had beat it globally, but like in North America, it's still the number one.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. We had Man on Fire, Kung Fu Hustle.
Okay.
Pixar's The Incredibles.
Oh, wow.
Hidalgo.
I remember I could never pronounce that word right when I was a kid.
Kill Bill Volume 2.
Okay, good.
Anchorman, Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead, loved that one. That was fun.
The Punisher with John Travolta.
And Thomas Jane.
The one filmed in Tampa.
I like that one.
For the listeners out there, if you don't know, it's pretty much, only people we know right now. But for the listeners, we are in Florida.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember I watched that one recently within the last few months. And it's like, it's very low budget and it suffers from that. But it's also like, it's kind of what cool. It does well. It does pretty darn well.
And the fight scene with Kevin Nash. or the
Yeah.
that's the act.
Yeah.
He was a wrestler. The Russian.
The Russian, yeah, that was,
dude, that's
it was
a good.
good,
One.
and it's edited well to like the music and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it was a lot. They were trying really hard with that one. I liked it.
Team America.
Oh wow, iconic masterpiece. Like a song that will live in infamy. You know.
Shout out for this one. It was a dramatic turn, so to speak. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Okay, yeah,
Jim Carrey.
yeah.
Napoleon Dynamite.
Wow.
Saw.
Wow, the original Saw. Wow, I remember. Yeah, that movie. That movie left a mark.
Sports movie, one of the better ones out there. Miracle with Kurt Russell.
Oh, I love
Miracle
Miracle.
is so
Oh my
good.
gosh, dude. The speech that he gives before the final game or the final whatever, like tonight we're the best, like, oh my gosh, like Kurt Russell killed that movie.
Yeah,
Love
for
Miracle.
sure.
And I'm not even much of a sports movie guy, but Miracle's great.
iRobot.
iRobot's
Spielberg,
good.
Yeah, the Terminal, one of the lesser Spielberg movies, I think, for a lot of people.
CGI everywhere in iRobot, but like when Will Smith was at like the height of his powers.
What about Sky Captain of the World Tomorrow?
I didn't see it in theaters, saw it on DVD.
Was that
and
Jude
just-
Law in that?
Jude Law, Angelina,
Jolie.
Gwyneth Paltrow was the female lead. Angelina Jolie was like all over the posters and trailers, but has like a 10-minute role in the movie.
Yeah.
You think she's gonna be a big deal, and then she's kind of
It's
not.
like big blue screen or green screen.
Yeah.
Like when they were trying, like
Yeah,
really
I think
pushing
it was
that.
even. I think that was even before, because Sin City was 2005, so Sky Captain might have even been the year before that, 2004.
Sky
so
Captain's
like,
cool.
So yeah, it's
It
kinda,
was.
It's
I haven't
kinda,
seen it
like, it's kind of like
in a long
pulpy
time.
and noir and kind of like this interesting style. It's like kind of weird, but like. I feel like people weren't really ready for someone to do a kind of like throwback noir kind of pulp movie like that with a modern thing. So people watching, they're just like, "Oh, this is weird. It's goofy."
Well,
it's...
and like kind of, you have to think, what were they thinking after Leave Extraordinary Gentlemen? It kind of falls into that weird, like alternate.
yeah, like
history where-
like a future past kind of a thing. Like
Yeah.
if you watch, here's the thing: if you watch the 1940s Superman shorts and then watch Sky Captain of the World Tomorrow, you
It's
kind of
that.
get the aesthetic of it a bit more, and it kind of not that it's anywhere near as good as those shorts, but it like you understand what the movie was going for a bit better. Pulp kind of stuff.
Yeah, listen, movies are subjective experiences.
Yeah.
But if you're a fan of Halle Berry's The Catwoman, I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm a fan of how Halle Berry looks as Catwoman, and I'm sorry, I'm not
is-
trying to be a pig, but she's gorgeous and she's in a great outfit. Like, but like that movie
is
is not good. That
terrible.
movie's not good. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Halle
No, I'm
Berry.
not. No,
like
it's-
that
it's
movie,
bad. It's
that
so-
movie's pretty rough.
It's bad.
That movie's rough. It's Benjamin Bratt in it. Like, do you remember the scene where they're like playing basketball?
Yeah,
Like,
oh
it's like
my
it's like they're
gosh.
filming like a Nike commercial or something. It's like, what is this nonsense? you
Go
know?
watch YouTube the scene with Halle Berry and
Benjamin
him
Bratt
playing
playing
basketball,
basketball
and the
Catwoman.
kids are like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, like it's very like if you think the jungle gym fight scene in Daredevil is cringy between Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner, this is like 3 times worse.
It's bad.
Yeah.
And then she jumps like 30 feet to do a slam dunk.
Yeah,
And
it's-
nobody's like, what?
Wow,
They're all
that's
like, "Oh, that was
impossible. Yeah, it's
cool."
like you just did something out of the Matrix, and they're just like, wow, like. Oh man, it's rough. It's like I feel like it occupies this weird zone where it's like, are we making this kind of weird date movie, or are we making like a superhero cool movie? Because it's like it's not Kill Bill and it's not Resident Evil or Underworld, but it's like I don't know. Like, is this like a weird comedy
know.
or
I don't
something?
know.
I don't know.
I prefer to laugh at it.
yeah, it's definitely one of those types of so bad it's good. I
Last
guess.
one, it was a very dark time after this. This is when we hardcore Godzilla fans experienced a drought for many years. We had our Godzilla Final Wars. I felt
Wars.
it necessary to mention this one, even though we'll do it another
Yeah,
one.
it
Another
ended.
time.
It was the 50-year celebration movie, and I remember at the time when I was 12, like I liked the movie, but then like over time, it's like it's a very throwback to like it kind of tries to bring in all of Godzilla's 50 years into one movie, so like it's very outlandish and wild, and sometimes it's serious, sometimes it's goofy. And I remember being like, this is the last one. Like, it's not something like serious and epic. It's something kind of like fun and wacky. And like for a while, I kind of hated that movie, but now it's like, well, the wounds have healed. Now it's just like a mad, crazy good time. So
Yeah.
it's redeemed itself.
2005. Man, we're only on 2005.
Yeah, I know,
This could be a two-parter, but
Yeah.
we're gonna get them all in there. We're gonna keep going. I don't care.
Yeah, we're doing it.
Fantastic Four. We had Serenity, I believe, was actually.
Let's take our time with 2005 and
2004.
we'll call it a two-parter.
Okay then.
Yeah.
For sure. We'll do a two-parter.
Yeah.
That's fine. Fantastic Four. Constantine. Keanu Reeves.
Oh wow, that's aged well. Fantastic Four, I always want to think it came out in 2004, but that's just because it's called Fantastic Four.
yeah.
Jessica Alba's awesome. Chris Evans was kind of cool. Like they kind of got him before he kind of found his
How do you
footing.
say they got Ian
Yoan Grufford.
Whoopsie.
Grufford.
I don't know.
It's a weird name.
Okay, he is a
Yoan. I think is
he's
how
a
the first name
huge
is.
nerd in that movie.
Yeah.
Like super dorky, secondhand embarrassment type, but he's honestly good.
Yeah,
like, he's a good.
The casting wasn't bad. Michael Chiklis is a thing. Like that's a solid cast. Like,
It is.
but it's just like the tone of that movie was a little too. It's like they're trying to go for Sam Raimi's Spider-Man without really having the ability to nail it right. It's like too goofy and not wholesome enough, and kind of just like maybe a little too cheap.
And Doctor Doom is like throwaway, basically.
Yeah, and like the final battle's like a minute long. Like it's just very like they were trying, and like Chris Evans like has some flashes of like brilliance as the Human Torch.
He's a
stuff,
good
but-
Johnny Storm.
Yeah, he's a solid Johnny Storm. It's just like kind of just not like the right ingredients, just kind of not the right mix. I don't know. They were trying. I'm not trying to hate on it, but it doesn't age well. Yeah. Constantine's aged quite well though,
And supposedly doing the sequel to that.
Yeah, I think that sequel's still happening. I mean, but yeah, Keanu Reeves as Constantine in that movie is like really cool. Like I remember at the time everyone was like, Constantine's not blonde, this is the worst movie ever. It's like, dude, did you watch that movie? Like the movie's actually like pretty darn cool.
Yeah,
It's pretty well
Shia
done.
LaBeouf's in there for a little bit.
Shia LaBeouf, Rachel Weisz.
That's a good one. Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith.
Dude, love Revenge of the Sith. Unironically, like I love it for all the memes, and I love it just as a great John Williams doing a great score. George Lucas, like visual effects everywhere. The visual storytelling is there. Like aesthetically, it's good. Hayden Christensen like doing the tortured soul thing. Like unironic fan of the prequels. I'm not one of these like they're so bad they're good people. Like I love the prequels, and Revenge of the Sith is awesome. I don't care what anyone says. Excellent lightsaber battles, excellent war sequences. Like,
yeah, the argument is that they're a little too like over choreographed, and that it doesn't feel like they're actually trying to kill each other with a lightsaber. It's awesome.
But it's awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The rule of cool prevails here. Like they look like they're trained experts trying to take each other out. So they would be one-upping each other as trained experts. They're not like willy-nilly two people that just pick up swords for the first times. They know each other's moves, like they're trained in this art form, and they have the Force. Like there's a whole element to it.
Yeah, and I remember at least initially being on the side of in the camp that thought like, well, really, that's all it kind of took for him to turn to the dark side when he takes out Mace Windu and that whole thing, and then he ends up calling him master right then and there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he is so twisted and manipulated at we can get.
And it is a slow burn across the trilogy when you actually take a step back and look at it.
Yeah, I really really like Revenge of the Sith. I think it's better than the new stuff. Anyways.
Yeah, that goes without saying.
That's not revisionist history either.
That's just facts.
Facts. Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
I love that movie when it came out. Like
Or
I remember
Mr. and Mrs.
Mr. and Mrs. because they're married.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking it was how funny it was caught me off guard the first time I saw it. Like when he's like when they're like in the house and like he's like pretending to die and stuff. Like he's like like I don't know. Like I haven't seen it in many years, so maybe it hasn't aged well. But like as a kid, like as a 13-year-old, I'm like, this movie's awesome. Like I love that movie.
No, I think it's still good.
Yeah.
And then I think they got together during that.
Yeah, that's the movie that ruined Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston's relationship. She pushed him to do that movie too. Apparently,
Ooh.
She was like, "Oh, do this movie with Angelina Jolie. It'd be great for your career." Then like that homewrecker stole Brad Pitt away from her.
Oh my gosh.
Allegedly, I mean, I don't know.
who
Who knows exactly how it happened? But I mean, you do a movie where you're making love with Angelina Jolie, and then 6 months later you're dating Angelina Jolie. I'm like,
Yeah, Tomb Raider.
yeah.
V for Vendetta.
Oh, great. Actually, was V for Vendetta 2005?
I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Because I
Sorry
have
if
it.
it's a spoiler.
I have it as March 2006 because I have it on my 2006 list. It was supposed to come out November 5th, 2005.
Oh, maybe you're right.
Then they pushed it back because they had the perfect release date.
Okay.
So we'll hold it off.
All right. Forget that. Thank you.
Hold it off.
Jarhead though. That was 2005.
Jarhead's good.
Jarhead.
Yeah.
Now I think a lot of people don't like it because it's not a war movie. It doesn't have action.
I remember
It's
that
not-
caught me off guard. There's no battles in it. Like it threw me off the first time I watched it, but it's like a really good movie.
And the cinematography is great.
And Jamie Foxx is great in it. Jake Gyllenhaal's good in it.
I dare anybody to watch the scenes where they're lighting the oil fields on fire, and not think, "Holy cow, that looks incredible!" Like
Yeah.
it's very. Was it Roger Deakins?
It might.
Yeah,
it could have.
Let me know if that's
could have been.
It was definitely Sam Mendes as the director. Of
Yeah,
that.
that's who it was.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention Road to Perdition before.
Okay.
Remember? Because that was Sam Mendes.
Yep.
Tom Hanks. Road to Perdition.
So Jarhead was Sam Mendes directed, and the cinematography was Deakins.
Yeah,
Good call.
yeah,
Very good.
And you know what reminds me of that is that oil field scene where it's very like
Natural
of,
lighting.
like Skyfall in 1917.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, Deakins has a look, man.
Anyways, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I remember.
See, I was never a big fan of that.
Yeah, me
I
neither.
didn't
I remember thinking it was so weird. I don't know.
But I know like a lot of people love that, and it's like one of those weird like.
And apparently it's one of those books where like it reads way funnier than you can put it on screen. Like for example, there's like passages in the book that it's like nothing happened, and then nothing continued to happen. They're like when you're reading it, it's like that's kind of funny, but it's like how do you put like an awkward moment like that visually and like make it play the same way, you know?
We'll throw out an Adam Sandler one here because we kind of haven't really been talking about him much. He was big around this time still, but one of the remakes he did, The Longest Yard.
Yeah,
I remember
again, I don't know the original, so I can't like judge it based on like
Reynolds.
they wrecked the original or whatever. Like
the original was not a comedy,
but I remember in my house like we loved The Longest Yard. It had like 1.5 million cameos from like pro wrestlers and this people and that people, and like Chris Rock was in it and stuff. Like I remember like that's a good time of a movie. I'm sorry, I like that movie.
Yeah. Shout out for my mother, her favorite movie of all time. At least I think it still is Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, really?
Not a fan. It is.
Ladies love that movie.
Yeah, and here's the thing. It's very wholesome. I think they maybe kiss once. There's like no.
Yeah, I remember in that whole era because Keira Knightley was in like Pirates of the Caribbean, King Arthur, Pride and Prejudice, which I remember watching in school. Like I was all up on the, I was into Keira Knightley back then. I had a crush on her for sure.
Everybody did. I mean, she was Keira Knightley.
Yeah.
The first Narnia.
Yeah, December of 2005. Yeah, I was a huge fan of those books at the time. Really loved that first movie, at least at the time.
CGI still holds
up. It's a bit children's-y, so yeah. But like as a 13-year-old, I'm like, this movie's exceptional. Like it's great. Like I love it, and like I like the books a lot. They're wholesome. They're good. I like stories like that.
Yeah, and then we had the precursor to Iron Man, Zathura. Remember that one?
Yeah, I remember that one.
It was like the space Jumanji.
Yeah, I remember it being like from the world of Jumanji, and I was like, as a 13-year-old, I'm like, is it a sequel or isn't it? I was like, is it connected or not?
Universe,
it's like, same kind of like realm or whatever.
But what's his name directed that one, and then right after
Jon
that,
Favreau.
Yeah, Jon Favreau, and then anyways. Speaking of Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr.'s Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Yeah, such an underrated like
Val Kilmer.
Val Kilmer and Robert Downey Jr. Like, dude, one of my favorite exchanges in that movie is when he's talking. He goes, look up the word idiot in the dictionary. You know what you'll see? And Robert Downey Jr. is trying to be witty. He goes, a picture of me. He goes, no, the definition of the word idiot, which you effing are. And I remember just like, I'm like, I love this movie. Like, that's great.
Yeah, and doesn't he lose a finger in the door? I
Maybe
think RDJ loses his finger.
All I know is all the Shane Black movies always end up with like the main character just like absolutely like beat to hell and back. Yeah, exactly.
It's very similar to the more recent, the one with Ryan Gosling and
the Nice Guys.
Nice
Yeah,
Guys.
yeah, very Shane Black in that way. Yeah.
So that one's, I love that one so much.
We're still in 2005, right?
We are. We have plenty to go.
Good.
This Stealth. I want to mention Stealth.
Yeah, I remember.
We talk about Keira Knightley and Heartthrobs.
Jessica Biel, yeah, because she was in Blade Trinity, which is the worst of the original 3 Blade movies. In 2004, she was in Blade Trinity, but like she's great looking. But
did we talk about Blade 2?
No, Blade 2 is 2002. Blade 2 is great. Like Blade 2 is every bit as good as the first Blade, maybe even superior. We'll talk about it now. Blade 2, Guillermo del Toro, like it's awesome. I
think it is a superior, and it's the creature design he throws in that classic.
The worst thing about that movie is there's a few bad CGI moments, but like everything else about Blade 2 is like awesome.
Yeah.
And Blade Trinity.
Is Norman Reedus in that one, or is he in the first one?
No, Norman Reedus is in the second one. Yeah. He's Scud.
Which you don't know at the time.
Yeah.
And then after watching The Walking Dead, you go back and
it's like,
what
oh my
the
god,
heck?
Daryl's in this movie. And he's like kind of a wimpy, dweeby character of this movie, And Blade Trinity has Ryan Reynolds as like proto Wade Wilson Deadpool. It's like it's the one saving grace of Blade Trinity. It's like it probably got Ryan Reynolds cast as Deadpool years later. But yeah, Stealth. Jessica Biel, I mean, she's gorgeous, and but like not that amazing.
No,
movie.
it does not hold up as well as I thought it did. I watched it not too long ago.
Yeah,
and
I remember
some scenes are cool. Some
Yeah.
scenes are like, but it's got a very like a very 2000s soundtrack,
And even the
it's so,
CGI
like,
kind of has a very 2000s kind of mid-tier look to it, like video gamey kind of.
yeah, I just remember liking that one a lot. But kind of like on the AI thing with the jet. I don't know. It was
Yeah.
cool. The Lord of War, Nicolas Cage. Remember that one?
Yeah.
I think that movie's much better than I remember it being.
Yeah. Not my like not my tempo, not my flavor of movie, but like good movie.
Yeah, at the time I wasn't, into it, but you discover a lot of these things that you skip by because it wasn't like the best or the most
Well,
acclaimed.
and when you're 13, you're not really thinking like Lord of War, like what? Like no, I want like superhero and action and spectacle and all this stuff.
I think
you know,
Jared Leto's in that one, I
Okay,
believe.
nice.
Anyways, History of Violence. Remember that
yeah,
one?
with Viggo Mortensen. I remember like
He was
post Lord of the Rings.
Post Lord of the Rings.
I kind of like weirdly kept up with a lot of the cast members from Lord of the Rings, but like they all went and did like these wild things. Like Elijah Wood was in Sin City, and then like Orlando Bloom kind of stayed on brand. He did like Troy and all that stuff, and Pirates of the Caribbean and stuff, and then like Viggo Mortensen did Hidalgo, and then History of Violence, and yeah, Viggo Mortensen, just kind of crazy.
Well, A History of Violence is it's Cronenberg. So there's some like shocking violence in that movie.
Kind of like
out
a fairly,
nowhere.
but kind of a fairly normal movie for Cronenberg. Normally, he
For
makes some
Cronenberg,
weird
typically,
stuff. Yeah,
but for normies out there who aren't used to
Yeah.
Cronenberg, you watch it like, holy crap, this is violent. I mean, it's in the title, but
yeah,
there's a couple scenes where he's like, kind of ultra violence cranked up super fast.
Yeah.
Kind of out of nowhere.
yeah.
Doom.
See, that's one that like I think it's aged kind of well. Like at the time, everyone was hating on Doom as a video game adaptation, but you watch it now, it's like it's got Dwayne Johnson in it, it's got Carl Urban in it, Dredd himself, who's it, Billy Butcher from The Boys, like himself, like Carl Urban's so cool, and like he's Doom guy, and Dwayne Johnson's in there as like the kind of hero who kind of like goes on this arc, and like it's an old school, like it's an Aliens throwback. It's like an old school, like military dudes fighting monsters kind of a movie. It's like, it doesn't, like, what bar did it need to clear? Like, it's a Doom movie, and like, I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's super fun.
Like, I would love to see like a better, awesome, more epic Demons Doom movie, but like for what that one was, like it's pretty cool.
Like a version of the 2016
exactly
game.
The 2016 game as a movie, like a 90-minute balls to the wall, not an ounce of fat on it kind of a movie could be great.
Oh, for sure.
Clint Mansell's score for Doom is awesome. I don't care what anyone says. Tracks like BFG are awesome. Tracks like First Person Shooter are awesome. Like the score for Doom is like really underrated.
Yeah. Another 2 for 1 year for Spielberg. He had Munich and War of the Worlds.
Nice. Yeah, that's kind of like the same kind of double up with Jurassic Park and Schindler's List.
And here, the reviews at the time, Tom Cruise was not in good graces at the time. Was he not jumping on the couch?
That's the same summer that like he was doing the
Katie
jumping
Holmes.
on the couch, Katie Holmes, and like saying a lot of making a lot of big statements about Scientology and psychology and medication and stuff, like on all the news circuits and whatnot. So like very sort of like controversial publicity that I think really kept War of the Worlds from being like one of the biggest hits of all time. I think it was still huge. I think it, 1.5 to 2 times bigger if Tom Cruise had just like completely been buttoned up during the publicity.
Yeah, and a lot of people think like, the final act is a little disconnected from the overall like kind of survivalist part of the movie, where it's like it kind of turns to like a little bit of. Here's the thing, I think it's amazing,
and it's true to the original. It's true to the source material.
Yeah, I think it's so good.
I think it's really good. I like films like that.
And Munich is also, I think, really underrated. Munich is it's hard to really put it in like its own genre. It's it's not a biopic by any means, but it's not a thriller either. It's not a drama. It's like all these things kind of all in one. Daniel Craig's in it.
Hard to place it.
Eric Bana. Very good. Very good. Definitely shout out for, I do have to go back and mention I made an omission in 2004 because I thought we were strapped for time. But now that we're doing a 2-parter.
Yeah.
I want to mention, we didn't really talk a whole lot about all the Harry Potters, but The Prisoner of Azkaban is 2004. And I think, was that Alfonso Cuarón?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the
one?
strongest of the, I'm not the world's biggest Harry Potter fan, but that's a strong entry, I think. I think that's a really good entry.
I think it's
the most stylish. Like, it's the most,
is.
like you feel the director's stamp on it. I think David Yates kind of just, like, settled into this kind of vanilla Harry Potter house style that he did the last 4 or 5 in, and it's kind of like there's not a whole lot of like crazy flares to how he directs, but like you can tell like number 3, like you can tell like that's got a director's stamp on it, you know?
Which is a great thing to say about a director in a movie. You know, it's just like if you want to be able to watch a movie and say, yeah, I recognize that guy's work for sure.
I hate the time travel stuff in it because it's stupid and makes no sense, but whatever.
Well, it is what it is, but I think it's probably one of my favorite. I think it's my favorite Harry Potter movie.
It's probably the best of them all, yeah.
You know, even though like the Deathly Hallows Part 2 might be like the most epic or whatever you want to say.
But again, you're talking to someone that's like, I'm not the biggest fan, but it's like I remember liking that one.
And then this is going to lead up into the 2005 one, so I have to mention it now. 2004's The Machinist with Christian Bale.
Yeah.
So that one's famous probably more for
how much weight he lost.
Yeah, and how skeletal he looked. And supposedly he was only eating an apple and drinking a glass of water a day.
Like an apple a day. And so, like, my God, like, you know, like the thing you'll do, you know, the way you suffer for your art, you know, like God bless him. But, whew.
Yeah, it's a weird movie.
That's crazy, yeah.
But then what's crazy is my man puts on like 40-50 pounds of muscle
to become Bruce Wayne
in 2005 Batman Begins, Christopher Nolan.
Yep.
And was told that, sorry, you're actually too big.
Yeah.
You know, you need to lean out a little bit more.
Mom took me to see that for my 13th birthday.
Dude, my mom also, I saw that with my mom as well, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. And gosh, I just remember like it was so... I don't know. It was just such a wild experience to see, like, you know, with the most recent Batman movie being Batman and Robin, to see one that it was like, oh, this is like serious. And like you're turning 13, so it's like you're a bit more open to that serious stuff, but you're not quite at like a There Will Be Blood level yet. You know, you're not at No Country for Old Men, but it's like you're open to like stuff that's a little less goofy. And that was like, that's that movie. It's like there's like, you know, turning 13 and seeing Batman Begins, it's like there's old goofy Batman and this is serious Batman and this is what I like now because I'm a teenager, you know, like it was just like a wild experience. I love that movie. I think Christopher Nolan's great, you know, but that was a turning point for superhero movies.
It was very, you know, critically acclaimed. I mean, here, it's a Nolan movie. We'll get into our Nolan list soon.
Yeah.
And certainly we'll talk about his Batman or Dark Knight trilogy. So I'll save my opinions for that thing, but Batman Begins is incredible.
Yeah,
it holds up. Nominated for best cinematography.
Yeah, and one of those that like you see it in theaters and I liked it, but then on DVD it was like I went through this phase where I was like, this is pure cinema, and I watched that movie. I think once I even watched it like in French with English subtitles. Like I was just like watching that movie like every which way I could watch that movie. All the time. I was like, I don't know why. I was just like fascinated with that movie.
Yeah, and then we already mentioned it, but we'll talk about Sin City.
Yeah, Sin City was wild. Not the greatest movie for my mom to have taken me to go see, but my mom took me to go see it nonetheless. Like there are definitely some moments where I was like turning away or taking some bathroom breaks. Like, you know, it's a very R-rated movie. Like, but my mom was kind of cool to like, you know, if I was like begging to see a movie that I thought looked cool, my mom was pretty cool about taking me to go see him. So God bless my mom. And but yeah, like Sin City was another one. It was just like, oh, this style, this voiceover, this like noir, like film noir stuff was not ever my genre that I grew up with. So like Sin City was like, oh, like dirty cops and crime and prostitutes and you know all this stuff. It's like this is hardcore, like this is real, you know. Like I was hooked on it for, you know, a little bit of time there.
And we wouldn't have 300 if we didn't have Sin City.
Definitely a stepping stone, 100%.
But that'll be part 2.
Yep.
Yeah, I love Sin City. Love it a lot. It's excellent. The Island.
Yeah.
Michael Bay's The Island.
Yeah, really solid movie. Scarlett Johansson. Gorgeous as ever in The Island, you know. Ewan McGregor coming off of Revenge of the Sith, you know.
Shout out to Djimon Hounsou.
Yeah.
I think that's how you pronounce it. Djimon.
Djimon or
I think
Djimon?
It's Djimon.
It's Digimon Hounsou, you know. I don't know. But yeah, like really cool cast, like really cool, like Michael Bay, like doing cool Michael Bay stuff. The action sequences are insane.
Very proto Transformers.
Yeah, you know, the action sequences are very insane, you know. Just like really cool, just like a cool one-off blockbuster sci-fi movie. You don't really get like one-off blockbuster movies these days. Everything has to be a franchise or something, you know.
And what's really cool about that movie is I don't think you've watched any of the Disney Star Wars stuff on Disney Plus rather.
I mean, only some of it, like
Other than Mandalorian, I'm sorry. Like I know you've watched the Mandalorian, but
so like haven't watched Andor. No,
right. So Andor, not to get into spoilers because it's for another time too, but there's like a prison type. You know,
I know there's like a
and
prison,
like a prison break type sequence, and it's very reminiscent of the island.
Okay.
And even in like the music, how it's like inspirational, like let's go.
Yeah.
It's very much like the island.
Nice.
You know,
nice.
it's
Good
very
to,
cool.
Good to know.
And they're even all wearing like the white jumpsuit kind of thing.
Yeah. That's also a little bit like George Lucas's first movie, THX 1138, has like the white jumpsuit kind of dystopian thing going on. There's some shades of that in the island.
I really like the island.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. King Kong.
Yeah, Peter Jackson's King Kong. Good, not amazing. Not to hate on it.
Hot takes coming in.
Not to hate on it. Here's the thing. I think like there's a 2.5 hour version of that movie that probably is a masterpiece. The 3-hour cut is not a masterpiece. I think people were a little too. I think Jackson himself and the studio. I mean, granted, after Lord of the Rings, you're gonna let him write his own ticket. You're just gonna be like, do whatever you want, make whatever King Kong movie you want to do. So they indulged him, basically gave him like a blank check and let him do whatever he wants. But it's like, I don't think there was enough people there to like kind of rein him in a little bit. Like a 3-hour King Kong movie where King Kong isn't on screen until like the 70-minute mark. Like it's unacceptable. That's not the most balanced King Kong movie. Like I understand that like maybe there was an emphasis to like, well, Return of the King swept the Oscars, so now we're gonna make this highbrow Oscar caliber King Kong movie. No. Like King Kong is very much not a monster; he's very much just an animal, and it's like that's an admirable take. But like these are monster movies; these are old school movie monsters. Like if you're just gonna make him a giant silverback, it's a little not very sci-fi anymore. You know, it's not a monster movie; it's just kind of this other thing. So it's like I have a lot of mixed opinions about it.
There's Joe Young on steroids.
Yeah, there's amazing sequences in it. There's amazing stuff in it. There's parts of it that are awesome. A lot of the casting is great. Like there's a lot of amazing stuff about the movie, but like the whole package is like it's a little long and it kind of just maybe taking itself a little too seriously is like this King Kong is going to be nominated for Best Picture. I just know it. Like that kind of mentality.
Yeah, I think it won VFX.
Yeah.
Which I think Narnia probably would have won had King Kong not come out that year.
Yeah, and I remember Narnia kind of stomped it at the box office, which was interesting. But it's like...
Yeah, I think World of Worlds and King Kong both kind of...
In like the 500 million range, and then Narnia was like almost 800 million, you know.
Which 500 million is respectable.
Oh, huge back then. Huge. Yeah.
But for what it could have been.
Yeah, because off the heels of Return of the King, everyone was like,
oh, it's... $1 billion.
Yeah, off the heels of Return of the King, everyone was like, I think King Kong's going to do $1 billion. I think King Kong's going to do $1 billion. And then it's like, well... It didn't do anywhere close to that, you know. It's like I don't want to say they were trying too hard because that sounds kind of mean, but it's like I just don't think they kind of had the right mindset on that. If that had another year to be made, if it was December 2006, that it's December 2005, maybe 6 more months on the script, maybe 6 more months in the editing room, probably could have gotten like a much closer to masterpiece movie than it was.
Now, let me ask you, while we're on King Kong, do you think that Adrian Brody, as leading man, maybe he got it because he was Oscar-winning Adrian Brody at the time from The Pianist?
That's interesting because in the original, the lead is the first mate of the ship, and in the new one, they make it the writer of the movie, which is Adrian Brody's character, and the first mate is a whole other character, and it's like you kind of like you think the lead of that movie would sell better as like the rugged action first man kind of a guy. Yeah. It's like they make him a little bit like I don't want to call Adrian Brody like twerpy or whatever, but it's like. He's a little wimpy, and like you kind of maybe want like a stronger male lead action guy as the main dude, you know? Like I don't want to say like, oh, who at the time, but like a Brad Pitt-ish kind of guy, maybe, you know, something like that, you know? And Jack Black
is weird.
Yeah, he was kind of an odd choice. He was kind of an odd choice as well. Like they made some. I feel like they were also maybe caught up of like we're gonna do these kind of off-kilter casting choices, and it's gonna work like genius because we know better. You know, like everyone's gonna be like. Everyone's going to think these are weird casting choices, but when they see the movie, it's going to be perfect kind of a thing, like a little high on their own supply maybe. But it's like, Jack Black isn't bad, and he has some great bits about it, but it's like, again, like, I think that's more like, it should have been more of like a John Hammond kind of, not age, but that kind of showman, and they kind of make him like this sleazy douchebag kind of a character. It's like, but it's like, you want to like Jack Black, but then he's kind of scummy, and it's like, you want Adrian Brody to kind of be like cool and tough, but like he just seems like inherently kind of twerpy. So it's like just going. I don't know if they kind of got the right type or tone right with the casting, but like I don't think it really gelled well.
I think
you know
his character is kind of like you don't really like him at first, but he has a little bit of a redemption. But I think Kyle Chandler would have been great as the leading man.
Honestly, yeah, Kyle Chandler's awesome in that movie. Like, I remember, for whatever reason, for a lot of ensemble movies, I would always like these supporting characters and then always hope that, like, those actors would get to be, like, the big main dude in some other movie. Like, I was, like, seeing Carl Urban in, like, a supporting role in Lord of the Rings, and then he gets to be the main guy in Doom. I was always like, oh, that's so awesome. Like, that's so cool. Like, I always liked seeing that. So, like, Kyle Chandler was one of those characters. I'm like, he's a really cool side character in this movie. Like, make him the main dude in something,
Yeah.
So, I mean...
And then he gets...
eventually
in the future, he gets to be in, a Godzilla movie and a Godzilla King Kong movie, which is
so
so cool.
He eventually
cool trivia.
he got the respect he deserved over time,
Yeah, we'll kind of wrap it up here in just a second. There's a lot of movies we could still talk about. I omitted stuff like I was pleasantly reminded via text from somebody in the other room, Finding Nemo.
Okay,
we didn't talk about Finding Nemo.
Yeah, we're not going to mention a lot of the animated stuff that's not really, what comes up in our minds first. But yeah, Finding Nemo was a classic for a lot of people.
Just stuff like that. There's a lot of movies, and the comedies were big back then. The Adam Sandler, Colin Farrell, or I'm sorry, Will Ferrell.
Yeah, all the comedies Colin Farrell has done. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, him in Daredevil was definitely that's a joke. Yeah.
The point stands.
Yeah. But yeah, Will Ferrell stuff. Yeah, 100%.
A lot of the comedy you couldn't get away with nowadays, and I think we'll touch on that more on the next part when we talk about stuff like Tropic Thunder. But I think that, is there any big ones that I'm omitting?
No,
that
I think we were pretty, we didn't mention every goddamn wide release of every of the years, but we mentioned a lot of the big ones, That's what the comment sections are for.
Yeah. Tell us your favorite movies anyways between 2000 and 2005. I'm pretty sure we covered all of them.
Yeah, what did we miss, What are the glaring omissions?
And here's the thing, I wasn't trying to cover every single one, but these are movies that are definitely notable for me when I was growing up, or even kind of maybe recently. And that,
did we mention Kingdom of Heaven? That's 2005.
I scrolled right past it. It's on my list. It's on my list.
Good. We're not going without Kingdom of Heaven. Love that movie.
The director's cut.
Yeah, the director's cut, the only cut, probably Orlando Bloom's best post Lord of the Rings. Like, he was kind of a wimp in Troy, and then he kind of gets to be like a proper leading guy in Kingdom of Heaven. Eva Green. Totally had a crush on Eva Green when that movie came out.
You had a crush on all of them.
Yeah, I know, right? I was 13. What do you expect? A pretty lady in a movie. I'm just like, they're gorgeous. Boys. Exactly, puberty. Liam Neeson's awesome in that movie. Like, Liam Neeson as like the dad mentor character in movies is just like a match made in heaven. But he's great in Kingdom of Heaven.
Yeah, so that movie is changed quite a bit between the theatrical and the director's cut, and Ridley Scott has kind of done this a couple times.
He seems to always
goes
do
back,
that,
with Blade Runner, you got the final cut and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes it a much better movie, and I think it, for me personally,
it's like the complete version of the story.
It catapults it into like in my opinion, like a top 3 or 4 Ridley Scott movies, top 4 or 5 at least.
Over time, Kingdom of Heaven, the director's cut, like, I would say, because I'm not the hugest Ridley Scott fan overall, just his kind of vibe and style doesn't ever seem to gel with me, but like Kingdom of Heaven, like, I would say is probably my favorite Ridley Scott movie by far.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that might cover it. I don't know.
Yeah, that was the one big one. Oh man, if we had cut this without mentioning Kingdom of Heaven, we would have had to
re-record.
Yeah, exactly. We would have had to add that on. But
yeah, these are the Chris, these are the movies that I remember being the movies that I was watching, and not everybody's favorite, I'm sure, but a lot of people's favorites are in there.
Yeah, some that were great and huge and impactful at the time, and then others that have kind of like aged well or have an interesting kind of legacy, or they were written off at the time, but they've kind of like stand out years later. So
I remember one that I think I was gonna mention, but you had stuff like Punch Drunk Love with Adam Sandler as a Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
I remember. Yeah, one of my weird memories of like being in the theater when a trailer for that came up is like it was a trailer and like it's kind of looked like an odd, like it doesn't look like an Adam Sandler comedy, and then like at the end, like some guy like a few seats down was just like, I ain't watching that. Like it was just like it was just this funny moment, and like I it was just a fun memory that I have of that trailer.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, next episode is going to be a part 2 because we didn't realize how many daggum movies
and we're not going to shortchange all of the great movies and just speed run through them. So, we're giving the 2000s its proper due here.
Yeah, and I guess another shout out for one that was, because we mentioned it in the 90s one, was The Wedding Singer, and I mentioned that there was the first unofficial trilogy of the Adam Sandler, Drew Barrymore.
We had 51st
Dates was 04.
That was 2004, yeah. And I remember, that was an interesting one. That's one of those where it's like, by then I was kind of not like as hooked on Adam Sandler as I was, stuff like Mr. Deeds.
He was still making bank though.
Yeah, Mr. Deeds and Big Daddy and all that other stuff. Like I was a big fan of like that generation, but like by the time we get to 51st Dates, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of like a little bit not as much hooked into it.
Will Smith was still king of the box office. I think he had Hitch sometime around 2004, 2005.
I think it was 04 or 05, something like that. Maybe 06, maybe, but like definitely in that realm, yeah. And I mean, Eva Mendes,
Right.
Not going to say I had a crush on her. It goes without saying. Clearly.
if they were a female in a movie.
Exactly. 13-year-old me had a crush on them, apparently, yeah.
Oh, goodness. We could keep going all night, I'm pretty sure. But we'll save the rest for the part 2. And if there are any glaring omissions that we...
Drop them in the comments.
Yeah, and then we'll pick them back up.
We don't care about your sports movies that we forgot.
Yeah. Sports movies aren't real movies.
This isn't cinema. If you want sports, go watch ESPN.
Oh, God. Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, that'll pretty much do it for episode 2 of the Film Jump.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys listening. Follow us on Twitter or on X. I'm probably never going to stop calling it Twitter.
Yeah, I want to call it X because it seems like it makes a lot of people mad. Like a lot of people are like, it'll never stop being Twitter. I'm like, well, for that, I just want to only identify it as X.
It's a habit for me.
It'll get there eventually.
Yeah. You can also listen to this on Spotify. So, I mean, if you've listened this far, you're either on Spotify or YouTube at this point.
Yeah.
But for future episodes, it's on Spotify, and we're working on getting it on Apple Podcasts as well.
Hit those likes, shares, and subscribes and comments and all that other good stuff.
Yeah. Do all that so we can keep bringing this content. But if we're honest, we'd probably still talk about all this stuff anyways.
Yeah, we're egomaniacs.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you. It's your host, Jesse, here, and host Chris over there. And just,
signing off.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
You are not in Kansas anymore. You are on Pandora.
No, I'm simply saying that life finds a way.